Test.
Recording in progress.
Okay. Good evening. Welcome to the City of Groton Mayor and Council meeting for Monday, February 6, 2023. Clerk, please call the roll.
President or Mayor Hedrick, Deputy Mayor Depot, Councilor Carter, Councilor McCabe, Councilor Norris, Councilor Piazza, Councilor Sheffield, City Clerk Jacome. Absent is Finance Director Uhas.
Okay, thank you. Please stand and salute the flag. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, recognitions, awards, memorials. Council, anyone have any? Okay, I have the Black History Month proclamation that I read at our celebration for Black History Month. So from the Office of the Mayor, City of Groton, Connecticut, proclamation, Black History Month. Whereas Black History Month grew out of the establishment in 1926 of Negro History Week by Dr. Carter G. Woodson and the Association of the Study of African American Life and History. And whereas in 1976, as part of the nation's bicentennial, Black History Week was expanded and became established as Black History Month and is now celebrated all over North America. And whereas during Black History Month, we celebrate the many achievements and contributions made by African Americans to our economic, cultural, spiritual, and political development. And whereas every year the Association for the Study of African American Life in History sets for Black History Month, and the 2023 national theme is Black Resistance. And whereas the observance of Black History Month calls our attention to the continued need to battle racism and build a society that lives up to its democratic ideals. And whereas the City of Groton continues to work towards becoming an inclusive community in which all citizens, past, present, and future, are respected and recognized for their contributions and potential contributions in our community, the state, the country, and the world. And whereas the City of Groton is proud to honor the history and contributions of African Americans and our community throughout our state and nation, now therefore I, Keith Hedrick, Mayor of the City of Groton, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the city and recognition of African Americans past and present in our community, do hereby proclaim February 2023 to be Black History Month. The City of Groton and I encourage all citizens to celebrate our diverse heritage and culture and continue our efforts to create a world that is more just, peaceful, and prosperous for all. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and affix the official seal of the City of Groton this first day of February 2023. Signed, Keith Hedrick, Mayor, City of Groton. We will now proceed to the receipt of citizens' petitions comments. Receipt of citizens' petitions is a portion of the council meeting where the council welcomes comments from citizens. To address the council, please sign the sheet on the table at the front of the meeting room. When you are recognized, please approach the podium. Clearly state your name and address. Each presentation should be limited to 5 minutes or less, and citizens should, if possible, submit emailed or written comments. Presentations should be related to matters pertinent to the City of Groton. City councilors will only ask questions in order to clarify the speaker's presentation and can respond during the responses to citizens' petitions portion of the meeting. City Clerk, do we have anyone signed up?
Yes, we have a few. Christy Rothmel.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Christina Rothermel. I live at 164 Branford Avenue, Building 38, formerly of Building 18, number 155. I felt compelled to come tonight and clarify a couple of things, especially in regard to the pictures that have been posted. There's a picture of my kitchen tear out. That picture was from 2017. Any pictures after that were from 2019. 2019 through 2021, I spent numerous times calling Branford Manor, trying to get them to rectify the mold that was coming out of the switch plate in my kitchen. They sent their maintenance people down to pour bleach into my wall and do other numerous crazy things, until finally the floors started to buckle. There was mold under the floors. There was mold in my kitchen cabinets. One particular day, I called them to come address the mold in the kitchen cabinet. When they took it off the wall, there was mold behind it, running all down the wall. I spent 29 days in ICU in 2021. I was admitted 5 other times for numerous respiratory issues. I don't want to see number 155, building 18 rented to anybody else until that whole building is either remediated, tore down, or something else. I don't want anybody to live their life the way I'm living it, or to end up dead. Like that poor young woman who moved into my old apartment. She was there for 7 months. She was 36 years old and left a little child behind. How many more people are you going to let Branford Manor rent that building or that apartment to? I don't want to see anybody else die. It's bad enough that I have to walk around the way I am. I don't want to see anybody else live this way, nor do I want to see them dead. I could sit here and complain about numerous things. I went out onto my porch the other day. There was an obviously high maintenance person or whatever the hell he was, some kind of worker, sitting on my stoop where my disability rail is. And he just looked at me kind of stupid like, and I said, "Who are you and why are you sitting on my porch?" You know, there's a million things I could complain about. But number 1 on my list, Building 18, number 155. If you don't fix it and they try to re-rent it, I will sit on that porch with my oxygen and bar anybody from moving in there. And that's all I have to say.
You have 1 minute.
Well, 1 minute ain't gonna listen to all the other complaints I have, but I wanted to speak to that. I haven't been able to get over here because I haven't been well enough to do it, but I'll be damned I was coming today. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Michael Boucher.
I'd like to offer my spot to any of the ladies. I'd like to speak first, especially those with children. If anybody wants to get up now. You just fill me in later, okay?
So my name is Dia Marilis Estronza Agostini. I live in Building 39, 182. I was removed from my home for 19 days, and in this past days, right, with a short notice of a couple of days only, and I have a kid with ADHD, which we should have in consideration our kids, because moving kids with special needs is very hard, and they're doing everything crazy. Communication is the key, even for relationships, for anything. And they barely communicate with you. And then this Saturday, I had to call, well, my neighbor, Geraldine Murray, had to call the police, the fire department, because a worker left a window open and the pipes exploded on the bathroom, and which I had to return today with my children, and I had told my kids we were returning home today, which is not happening because all this problem that we're having. And I also have videos which I show the mayor, Keith, and everything is damaged, so now we're like homeless just because the lack of communication, not the consistency of working. And what else is going to happen for us in Branford Manor to live in peace and to call our house a home, because we're moving here, there. I also have my mother, which I'm gonna speak for her because she doesn't speak English. She's in building 10133. Her name is Maria Agostini. She's right here. And they removed her out of her apartment, gave her, they were gonna work. She was two weeks out of her apartment. They were gonna fix her bathroom, and she returned back. And it was like if they have done nothing at all in her apartment. And now we have the same exact issues. So what is gonna happen next? Thank you.
I'll go to you, Michael.
No,
Unless-
there's some other others here that would like to speak first. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Kimberly Napier. I live in building 121, apartment 11. I have so many things I can discuss about, but decided to just minimize and keep it to the point. So for the last 3 years, I have went to the rental office to complain about the damages in my apartment, in other words, mold and mildew, and was sent away with no help until it was exposed by the media in the city. Because of this, I have lost material things, and now even the health of my children and myself has been compromised. As I experienced a declining changes in our health as well as our finances, when I was not able to go to work because either they were sick or I was sick, until I eventually got transferred to a hotel with my kids for about 3 months. They told me it was 7 days, but it ended up being 3 months. We were in a hotel. At this point, it has caused me to be an emotional wreck, financially, physically. Lost the words of neglectance. It's just so much. Even when we entered back into our homes, some things weren't still done. A couple of my items were missing. And at this point, I'm just demanding to be compensated for everything that I have lost, as well as be put into a new home would be great, because these homes are not in good positions for anybody to live in anymore. So yeah, that's pretty much what I have to say tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Anybody else, or Michael?
Would anybody else who would like to go sooner?
I'll go.
Hello, my name is Geraldine Murray. I live at Building 39, Apartment 184. I'm going to speak of what's happened over this past weekend, as I have so many other things that I could say about Branford Manor and the changes and the non-fixing of a lot of things since I've lived there since my first apartment was building I can't remember the building number. Apartment number was 56, and now I live at 184. So Saturday evening about, I don't know exactly what time, I heard a noise out somewhere near my porch. Come to find out, it was my neighbor's water that had exploded in her bathroom. Come to find out, a maintenance worker that was in there at the time left the bathroom window open. I don't think she did. I know she didn't. It was open for a good several days. So that was the missing puzzle today when I had a revolving door of people coming in to ask me questions, and there was concerns and there was work done and so on. So if my neighbor's bathroom window was not open, and due to the extremely cold temperatures that were this past weekend, this would have never happened. So her pipes broke in her bathroom upstairs, which flooded her bathroom, which flooded into her kitchen and into her basement, which flooded into my basement and into my kitchen, dining room. And I was freaking out. So to cover myself, I called Groton City Police Department, and I also asked for somebody from the fire department, because the way the water was coming in, and it was in light fixtures, and there was a big fan in my basement, and I thought we would have like an electrical fire. So I did what I had to do, and I was told today that people told me, I'm glad you called. So I have a police report, and I have proof. So in regards, that happened Saturday evening. My neighbor was so upset, she was in tears because she has 5 kids, and she wanted to come back into her apartment. And I was told today that my mold remediation that they took out of my basement, I would have had brand new sheetrock in my basement today. But for somebody's negligence of leaving someone's bathroom window open, nothing got done. So now my time has to be pushed back another time. This has been since January 16th, and I've already signed a paperwork going from January 1st or 2nd. Now I have to go to February 10th, and then so on and so on, because of one person's carelessness. So I had water in my basement, and she had water in her whole apartment, and I had it in my kitchen in my basement. And they waited till today to come with a shop vac to suck up the water. Yes, today.
Did maintenance even?
No, well, the maintenance guy, there was one maintenance guy on call all weekend in this cold weather.
Keep it down. You have the floor.
One maintenance guy was on call. Several other calls, from what I understand, were made. And he's running around like a chicken with his head cut off. And luckily, Spencer, whatever Spencer does, was still there Saturday afternoon and helped him. I had to call my neighbor, Rick, 4 times to have him come down. He's laying in bed with high blood pressure. Rick, could you please come down? The maintenance guy wants to turn the water off in my neighbor's apartment. 4 times I had to call him because he couldn't hear anybody knocking on his door, and he was resting because he has a lot of medical conditions, and we're really good friends. We're all good friends in RL. But this place, I swear they should tear down L by L by L and start fresh. So there's no mold, so there's no bugs, so there's no rats, so there's no cockroaches. I mean, I've lived there for this long, and I've never, ever seen the conditions in Brantford Manor have become the way they are in all these years. It's absolutely ridiculous. Yeah.
Who's next?
Michael Boucher.
Anybody else? You want to go up right away? You all set?
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. You're inspiring. Thank you for coming.
Mike Boucher, 16 Hillside Avenue. I wanted to wish Val and her daughter the very best as they travel to their new home in California. Val was also in Building 18. Val spoke out at both town and city council meetings on behalf of all the families of tenants living in Branford Manor. Val's family spent months in a hotel while waiting for a safe apartment at Branford Manor. I went to view one apartment with her one day, and the bathtub liner that was installed during what City Hall has referred to as the beautification project of 2017-2018 had failed and accumulated lots of water underneath. When you pressed down on the liner, black slime came out of the hole and spread all over about the tub. Needless to say, that was not acceptable for bathing her daughter in. In the end, it was safer for her to just leave, and fortunately, she found housing elsewhere. What we have sadly witnessed and continue to see daily in America is the disregard of human beings who are of color, female, or lower economic status. This remains a constant problem in our nation. The tenants of Branford Manor fall into all three categories. This community represents a significant larger number of people of color, family-led households, and lower economic status. All citizens deserve equal respect and consideration, and that's, especially has got to be amplified for the tenants of Branford Manor, who I have seen disregarded for years now. Senator Summers proposed state legislation, and it's a great start, but it doesn't address the immediate needs for mole reform. Again, the city should have been on top of this back in 2017, 2018, during the supposed renovations that City Hall now cleverly identifies as a beautification project. The proposed bill is fine, but will take time. I would like to see immediate action. Make it a state law, ASAP, and declare mold as unsanitary. Never mind trying to measure it or quantify it. Take your little tape ruler out and see how big the mold spot is. It's unsanitary, period, and doesn't belong in anyone's apartment. Also, mold removal itself is not enough. Real remediation must include repair, moisture-reducing measures, and removal of what is causing the mold to grow in the first place, and stop future mold issues. I would also require that all health and safety code violations are recorded at one site that provides easy access for tenants to look up. No tenant should have to move into an apartment not knowing what was there beforehand, and they should know the history of the apartment that they live in, because the mold seems to be staying there. Right now in the city of Groton, complaints can be found in the City Planning and Zoning Office, the Mayor's Office, and possibly with other city officials, city council members, and Ledge Light. Tenants should be allowed easy and immediate access to any maintenance records for housing they live in or may live in by the owners of the property. City Hall and Ledge Light, in addition, should be offering their records of repair or violations immediately to tenants. In addition, help using Chapter 135 should be mandatory. The law requires a landlord to repay reasonable expenses that the town, city, or borough where the property is located, or the state, paid to any tenant who is in any dwelling displaced due to code enforcement violations. The town, city, or borough may place a lien on the real property owned by the landlord to recover those funds. The Connecticut Uniform Relocation Act is available for persons who need assistance if their home or business is displaced by land acquisition programs, code enforcement violations, or housing rehabilitation programs. The act requires a displacing agency to provide advisory assistance and financial benefits to the displaced person. The town of Mansfield makes very good use of this law and uses it to benefit those displaced by code violations.
You have 1 minute.
No family should be in a hotel for months. The town of Mansfield sets strict limits for repairs, not months, but weeks or even days. Seriously, stop canceling meetings when there's so much work to be done. And Keith, please answer the FOI request concerning Branford Manor that you have had for over 2 months now. I will be contacting the state of Connecticut to see what the problem is with you in the city. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Who else?
Next, we have Maria Agostini.
Okay.
Richard Silirani. Yeah.
Yes, I'm Richard Deslamy, Building 39 at 174. I've been promised a lot of things that's going to be replaced in my apartment. It's finally something good happened. I got my new sink. Took 7 months, but I got it. There's not really much I have to say. I've been saying this for the past 6, 7 months every time I come to the council meeting. And I'm just repeating myself. So that's all I've got to say.
Thank you.
Next, we have Sandra Fetters.
Good evening. My name is Sandra Fetters. I live in Building 31, Apartment 28. We are not residents of Branford Manor. We are victims. My family was healthy before we moved in there. We had watched my daughter suffer grand mal seizures repeatedly. And after that 5 years, she's still having seizures. We've been out of that apartment for 268 days. She's seizure-free. And I want to talk about what happened to my other daughter. Absolutely took her education away from both of them. She's homebound school now. The chronic fatigue and the pain this girl endured, having to watch her child screaming and crying that she wanted to die on a daily basis, not because of she didn't want to live. It was because of the chronic pain she was suffering every day. That place has robbed us of everything, our futures, our lives, our dignity, and our integrity. I've had enough. They keep telling me they're remediating my apartment. My apartment has only been painted. And because my mold isn't visible, it makes it more deadly than the stuff that you can see. All I did was sign a lease to move into an apartment. Next thing I know, my family's sick beyond repair. We just don't have colds. We're sick for life. My furniture, all my belongings, everything is gone. And now I'm in a hotel and I get harassed by these people in HOU. You know what it is to feel like when they call you and tell you your apartment's ready and you can go home? That's torturous. My mental state of mind is being affected by these people, and they just keep taking and taking. I have nothing else left to give. They want my soul, and they want me dead. My family is in imminent danger. Our lives are threatened. I have documentation to back up everything I say about my medical. Where is their documentation of what they did in my apartment? Zero, because nothing's been done. It's all talk and Band-Aids. It's a revolving door of BS. That mold will never go away. It's abundant, and it's an apocalyptic problem. You can't kill it. As soon as that temperature pops back up, that mold is going to thrive. It's breeding itself, and it's just causing more problems. The more stuff they rip out of those buildings, the more that mold is getting in the air, and it's becoming worse. They're making the problem worse. The stuff that they're throwing at is not doing anything. They need millions of dollars. They need qualified people with educations that can deal with this stuff. These people that they're hiring are just basic people that don't know what's going on in there. Their health is also in jeopardy. Do you think they're telling them about the conditions that they're working in? Absolutely not. They're telling me people are going to my apartment inspecting. Well, I get no notice. That's highly, illegal to begin with. I don't know about these things. I'm not there. I'm still in a hotel. They got me out of there with promises to fix my apartment. Zero. Zero documentation. I want accountability. I want some answers. Because if not, I will be knocking on every door in Groton to make sure something has changed next time election's coming. My family's been in this town for hundreds of years. And if they knew what was going on, shame on all of you who know about it and turn a blind eye. All of you are accountable who does not help us. My family is sick and we are dying. And we are going one by one. Look at Chrissy. You want to go on with her? Took her life. Now she's got heart problems. My other daughter, thank God, her seizures stopped. And I don't know when things are coming at me and my breathing is in jeopardy. She wants to get up here and speak. She has a voice and she needs to be heard. But she's too afraid and scared. And she shouldn't be, because the biggest fear that we had is living in Branford. And I will not go back ever until they fix it. They're telling me I have a choice between either death or homelessness. Which one am I going to take? If I'm dead, I don't need a place to live. Those are coffins.
You have 1
Do
minute.
something about it. We're dying.
Thank you.
Next we have Robert Hagar.
Hello, Robert Hager, 107 Monument Street. I have some prepared comments, but in hearing the stories, I don't feel my comments are justified, except to point out the city has a charter, and there are certain responsibilities and obligations created by that charter, one of which is the Code of Ethics involving fair and impartial treatment of all residents in the city of Groton. And it sounds like for the people that are here, they're not being treated fairly or impartially. There are other requirements in the city charter which probably are also being ignored. I'm not sure why. I know I've brought concerns before many members in the city of Groton, and those concerns are equally ignored as the other people in this room. I'm not sure what the motivation is that's driving this, but I guess fundamentally, if the city has a charter, why is it not being enforced? It's a question that has not been addressed or answered despite my requests on numerous occasions, which is why I will continue to pursue it. But I'm not going to talk anymore about my prepared comments because I think the stories of everyone else in the room are more important than mine. Thank you.
Allie Fetters.
My name is Allie Fetters, and I live at 28 Branford Ave, and I've been living with my family in a hotel for 9 months. And I just think the behavior from related, and quite frankly, the whole city of Groton and HUD and the state, it's ridiculous that we have to live like this. I don't know what we did to deserve any of it. None of us. I don't know, like, who is policing you people. It's ridiculous. You have, like, a job to do, and your job is to protect the people. And what's happening? The apartments aren't renovated. They're not remediated. People are dying. We're getting sick, and our whole lives are being taken away from us because you people can't do your job. It's ridiculous. We can't get a voucher to leave because HUD thinks it's not any of their business. Our health isn't HUD's business, but it should be. You know, my whole life has been taken away from me. I have multiple rare autoimmune disorders. Sometimes I get so scared I'm gonna go into anaphylactic shock just from going outside. And there's nothing I can do to fix it. There's no treatments, there's no research, because it's so rare. It's so scary, and it's so scary to have to watch your mom's lips turn blue. It's horrifying, and it's horrifying that this is gonna happen to so many other families, and none of us deserve this. We work hard, and it's so hard to get out of this situation because we don't make enough money. And the only choice is to make money, but it's hard when these people are an institution to keep us poor. They're benefiting off of our suffering and our pain, and it's so unfair, it's absurd, and it's ridiculous. And I don't know, you guys are hearing us, but you're not listening. You're not doing anything, and you're gonna sign off on this remediation at the end of February, and it's not even done. People are getting sicker and sicker, and people are dying, and nobody is listening. Nobody's taking us seriously. They're not thinking it's legit, but it is legit, and it's getting worse every single day, and it's festering. But nobody cares, right? Because it doesn't matter, because we're poor, and we're people of color, and we're women, and we're single mothers. We're undesirable, according to Matt Finkel of Related. So I don't know. It's just ridiculous, and I'm sad all the time because I don't know what I did to deserve this. I don't know what any of us did to deserve this, and it's so unfair because you guys can sit here and go home to your healthy homes and your healthy families, and you're not even gonna think about us at night. How do you people sleep? How do the people got Related sleep? It's corrupt, and nobody's gonna do anything to fix it. So.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you.
All I have on the list currently.
Okay. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? We signed the list.
Portia Bordelon. Got it.
All set? All right. My name is Portia Bordelon, 24 Jefferson Drive in the city of Groton. For full disclosure, I am a Groton Town Councilor. My comments are germane to me as a sole councilor. I do not represent any of the 8 other councilors I serve with. So when I speak on behalf of government transparency and thing, I speak solely for myself and only for myself. And I repeat that again. Again, I speak as a sole councilor, not on behalf of any other government officials on the town side. As we hear these comments today, I can't help but to reflect, looking back at the video where I saw Chrissy speak on the town joint meeting with the city. At the time, the mayor here was the deputy mayor. On the town side, come and speak with this related affordable regarding the new and improved. And I remember Chrissy being, with no disrespect, a lot healthier at the time, to an extent, but newly diagnosed with conditions, and speaking very excited about the possible change and hope of something better to come. She was hopeful, and here we are. I encourage everyone to go back and watch that meeting. If you want the date and the timestamp, I can send it to you. I've been in Branford Manor. I was on the front page because of Ledge Light Health District. The mayor was there. I was told I was being aggressive. The same thing used in my political campaign on the town side. If that's aggressive by speaking up for these women and these men, then I'll be aggressive. I said that on the town side, and I will stand corrected 100%. On that very day, it was Building 18. The family was there, the mother and the aunt of the woman who had just lost her daughter from a mysterious autoimmune thing that took her whole life. And the woman from Ledge Light was standing outside. It was me and 2 of the other tenants. Mike was inside with a flashlight looking around, and Keith, the mayor, and the town manager were walking away, and the town manager walked away. He could barely, had a tickle in his throat. And I said, if you can't see it, doesn't mean it's not there. What other measures, and I spoke just like this outside in front of that lady, what other measures can be done? What can we do? Can we change the ruling? Because I know I spoke with Paul Norris about the mold he had down in his place. And he said he had people come in and cut holes in the walls and send little cameras in and look. That's how he found his mold. That's how most people do. But the current regulations under Ledge Light Health District state, if they don't see it, they're not required to go behind the wall. So if the remediation, what they're saying they're doing, to me that's not remediation because we're painting over it. If we don't see it, it doesn't exist. We cannot believe that. We just spoke about Black History Month. Racism exists. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Maybe you don't hear it, it's still prevalent. Mold is still there. I will continue to stand with these people, and that's exactly how I speak, because I speak loud, because I'm Black, and I'm proud, and it's not aggression, it is passion. And with that, these women and children, one of the women told me tonight, and I won't say her name because I don't have permission, said that one of the children have elevated lead, as well as asthma issues recently, and they'll be contacting Ledge Light Health District. This council, I know, is only as good as their mayor, and that's why I encourage this council, because they're doing the best that they can do. There's things that they did not know about, and they cannot be blamed for everything. So I ask that you give them some leniency. But to the mayor, I encourage this council, you guys can create your own rules. You guys can push any legislation forward that any time there's a complaint regarding mold or any type of deplorable conditions in a home, that you as a council should be notified immediately. Back in 2017, when this was happening, it was not coming to the council because I watched the tapes. So anyone who served on the council then did not know. But the deputy mayor and the mayor knew, and Hendrick was part of that. I encourage this council to take a stance. The laws that come out of here are governed not just by the mayor. He doesn't run this meeting solely. You are all equally represented and allowed to speak up and openly ask the questions. And I feel bad that some of the information did not go to you. So in 2017, why are we here now? Now, Heather Summers mailed out a mailer stating that Hendrick has been notified and is on board with the bill. Where were you in 2017 when Chrissy was complaining and almost dying? Now you're on board? Where did all these unanswered calls and requests go? But in a file that when people went down there, like my husband and Mike, you were told, look through the pile. No one could even help them. So I ask for a better reform here, and what this council can do is ask for more transparency to make sure any and all complaints that are gone, that the mayor knows about, each and every one of you should know about it equally, and it should not be separate. Branford Manor is not something new. This is systemic.
Your time is
systemic problems that need to be fixed for the health and welfare of the well-being of our folks in Groton.
Portia, your time
Thank you very much, and thank you to the councilors who do their work. And I would love to work with you guys. This needs to be fixed immediately. Let's care about those black and brown people, not just 1 month a year,
Your time
12 months a year. Thank you.
All right.
Anybody else?
Amity R. Scott.
Good evening, counselors. I'm Amity R. Scott. I'm an attorney practicing in Groton. Can you hear me? Okay. And I echo, I represent many of the people in this room who have so eloquently spoken, and you're doing great. You really are. I know it takes a lot to just be here and to speak up. So I read these weekly Ledgelight spreadsheets where they issue public health orders and then they rescind them and they say the work's done. And then, I don't know, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, I get a call that there's mold again in my apartment. There's flooding again in my apartment. I really can't tell what they did in my apartment. I mean, dozens. People coming back after being in a hotel for a month. And what happens that evening? Well, it's raining and their basement starts flooding. What did they spend all this money on remediation for? Exactly. So I mean, you all have testified so eloquently. I have some photographs. The first two I'm going to send around is Maria Agostini Valentin's house. I just happened to go by today to see how things were going. She's got a bathtub with a bath fitter overlay, just like everybody else's, and you step in her tub and it's swish, slosh, squish, slosh. She was out of her apartment for 2 weeks. I go down to her basement, smells like a fresh coat of paint was applied, but I notice there's a whole bunch of staining, water damage. Well, it's because the basement window is completely broken, and during the rainstorm, water poured in. This is the apartment of a woman who we just had asked to have her relocated again because she was out in November. Ledgelight cleared her apartment. And this is what it looks like as of this month. I mean, these are just a few examples. I can go on and on. Here's another series of photos in an apartment that was remediated a little earlier, about summer of 2022. Here are pictures from October of 2022. Next is the subfloor of an apartment of a client of mine. She's been, let's see, she was out of her apartment for a few months over the summertime. They did absolutely nothing in her apartment. Out of desperation and her children's begging and pleading, she went back into the mold-infested apartment. Finally, a few months later, they got her out of that apartment. That was around Thanksgiving, and she's been out ever since. And there's still obvious evidence of water damage and mold in the subfloor under her kitchen and dining room, where we know she had leaks. So, you know, whatever great ideas Related might have had, you know, whatever rules Ledgelight has to enforce, in the end, they're not doing anything. And you can see that in these pictures. You can see that from the small representation of folks that are here. There's 442 units. By my estimation, easily over 70% have similar issues of mold and other health issues. So it's beyond time to really take swift action, decisive action on this, because none of what we've tried so far is doing the trick. Thank you.
Last I have is Ian Thomas.
Ian Thomas, 24 Jefferson Drive. I'm here to speak in regards to the Branford Manor situation, first and foremost. As you can hear tonight, and for many, many months now, you know, things are not being addressed in a comprehensive fashion. Many months ago, many people, both who live there and who were advocating on their behalf, stated clearly that the only way to move forward was to have a comprehensive plan to go LPlex by LPlex, 100%, you know, remediation, renovation, whatever it took, strip it down to the bare studs and frames and purge everything. That was not the plan that was brought forth by Related, and now we are seeing, you know, the flaws in whatever plan it was that they did think they had is not working. Whether that's by design or just negligence, who knows? Either way, it doesn't matter because it's not right and it needs to be corrected. Quick follow-up, my wife, Portia Bordelon, mentioned a joint Groton City public comment joint meeting of the Groton City and Town Councils that Ms. Rothermel spoke at. That was on March 21st of 2017. It's on YouTube, Groton Municipal Television channel. I recommend you all look it up and listen to the testimony there and review the discussions that occurred. And if anyone has any questions, you know, or is curious to know more about some of the backstory or some other meetings that were key, I have a list, a comprehensive list I could email to you. My email is iancthomas4Groton. That's 4, the number 4. So Ian, IANCTHOMAS, the number 4, Groton @gmail.com. Send me an email, and I'll send you the list of everything I've got so far. It's enlightening, but it's rather discouraging to think that so much has been known for so long, and still yet we have the same problems, just getting exponentially worse. My heart breaks for the people and the suffering that has been caused. And I implore the council, you know, I look back and, you know, I share Mr. Boucher's dismay at the number of canceled meetings we've seen over the past few months. And I'm not a scholar on the city charter, but I would implore all you city councilors to think critically about every time you get notice of a meeting being canceled, like what is it within your power to do to counteract that? There's plenty of business to be done. And the city council is meant to be a check and a balance not a rubber stamp. So while the mayor may think there's no business to be done, there is business to be done.
Put Branford on the agenda.
Branford is desperate. And which brings me back to my other point was, I asked months ago, what is the process for validating and verifying that these remediations and these repairs are being done? You know, it's great to hear from Related. I saw the PowerPoint from December or whatever it was that they gave when they called it a beautification project in 2017, which was not what they described it as in 2017, so go watch the meetings. Facts are there. What is the verification process? We heard from Related, we hear from Ledge Light, but what is the city doing? The city has a responsibility to be a check and balance on those entities.
And 1 minute.
You know, in the default thing, you know, I've heard some wonky answers from the mayor and from the town manager about what that all means. But it sounds to me like it's like some kind of three-card Monte deal that Legislate's doing, where they rescind the order and then they reissue the order after another complaint comes in. So somehow, miraculously, it's always never quite over 30 days, or somehow they're not quite triggering the full default. I don't know. That's beyond me, but it's time for some true accountability and follow through. And I can empathize with Rick over there. I'm tired of saying the same thing over and over again, but here we are again. And one more point of clarification. Legislate Health District has within their power to promulgate their own regulations. They can write their own rules. So they can write rules that give them the right to drill a small hole in the wall and send a camera up and start looking around. Don't be fooled. Legislate has the power to do whatever they please.
Time is up.
They just have to have the will to follow through with it. Thank you.
Do you have anything else?
That's it.
Okay. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak? Okay. Hearing none, we will move on to respond to citizen petitions comments. I want to remind council this is comments. It is not to get into a dialogue back and forth with the audience. It is not to get into a dialogue back and forth with each other so that we do not violate FOIA instructions.
You guys gonna stay to hear the comments, or? Yeah, I have a woman who's very sick and she's on oxygen, so I have to go. I apologize, but her health is more important than really than what Keith has to say, because I've been hearing it for months.
It runs out. Are you tired here?
Nice seeing you.
You're welcome. It does the same thing. I'll stay and listen so I can tell him.
Okay. Quiet in the gallery, please. Okay, I will open this up to response to citizens' petitions, comments. Deputy Mayor Depot.
So I'm going to apologize first because I was sick, so I'm wearing a mask to protect everyone, but it probably makes it hard to hear. So a few things. I take a lot of notes, so there's a lot of comments I try to note on every person that speaks. I just want to say thank you to everyone who comes out to speak, and I usually say this when there's a lot of people, but a lot of times we don't get feedback other than at public comment, and one of the things that I have encouraged people to do is to contact us, myself personally, via email. I've personally been able to resolve a few issues with residents in Branford in between meetings. It's also sometimes easier via email because then we have it in writing. And one of the things that was brought up by Attorney R. Scott is there's some I believe you said this last time too, there's discrepancies in the spreadsheet that you received. And I requested last time if you could email those to myself and or the mayor's office, and I didn't receive an email with detail on which ones were. This can't be a back and forth, so, but I just want to, if you want to email me the specific things that are incorrect, I definitely am on board with addressing those. And to the comment about the council not being involved in this issue, I'm sure that the mayor will testify that I get an update almost every day on what's going on in Branford. Personally, since the day that we met last May, I have private messaged with some residents. I've met in person with some residents. I've talked to people. I've shared my contact information. And to me, and again, this is why when some of these complaints that are brought up tonight I haven't heard before. So now I can follow up on them. There's no way for me personally to fix things I don't know about. And as a counselor, I can follow up with the employee departments, so I can follow up with the building department myself. We can do those things. I would encourage anyone with a complaint or with these complaints where Branford said they would do a repair, but they haven't done it. Those are issues that the building department can enforce. So if there is a repair done in your unit and it's not done properly or correctly, or if no notice was given to you, those are enforceable violations that you can make a building complaint, a complaint to the building department about, and they can be followed up on. I also, to Attorney R. Scott, I appreciate the photos. If it's possible to email those with the digital footprint so we know, and the information, which unit they're from and when they were taken, so we can take action on that information. Because there's nothing written on them, so I can't see personally like what the, like which unit each one is, that kind of thing. If it's possible to send those to us via email, then I can personally follow up on them via email rather than, it's not easy to do with just a physical file. The other thing, the no notice. So again, if you don't get notice, the other thing that I wanted to bring up is if you are displaced from your apartment because of, for any reason that the apartment is not usable, Related is responsible to provide you a place to live. If they are not doing that, you can make a complaint to the building department, and if they are not reimbursing for costs related to being displaced, that is something you can let us, like I personally will follow up on that and have followed up on those issues before. If I don't know about it, I can't follow up on it. I am more than willing, again, ask also any of the counselors, because I have been involved in this issue virtually every day. I will follow up on those issues if I am aware of them. And let's see. So reimbursement. Oh, and I just want to clarify that the building department is where the complaints are. So if you have a question about a unit, the building department is the place to call. I know one of the commenters said that it was planning and zoning, but I don't want anyone to accidentally call them and then get the runaround, but it's the building department houses all the complaints for housing complaints, and can also oversees Ledgelight, but you can also call Ledgelight directly about your unit. And hold on, I think I have one more thing. I know this has been, you know, a big issue on my end from what I have seen. The most effective way that I have been able to help remedy issues or follow up on problems is when people either email or copy me on a complaint to the building department, sending that information. Even like I said, follow-ups when there's been a repair done and it's done improperly, you can make a complaint about that. You do not have to go, oh, well, they said they finished it. If they've done it wrong, if there is still a deficiency in your unit, you can make a complaint. And as I said, if you are seeing a report that says your unit has been repaired, but it's not, you can make a complaint. That is something we can follow up on. But if the report has come back and it says that the issue is closed and we don't hear any other feedback, if it's already been completed, we don't have that information. So the more information that we get, we can only enforce the things that we know about. And I am all in favor of following up and trying to push related. I've been pushing them since the beginning. So I just would encourage anyone, and our contact information is right on the city webpage. I've put it in the Branford community page and in other places in the community forum on Facebook. But please feel free to contact your counselors, your mayor, your building department directly. You can contact all of these people directly. You do not have to wait for a meeting or wait for someone to come to you. You can just make a complaint and we can follow up on it. So I just want to encourage everyone to do that. I also wanted to point out on a different note, if there's an issue with how a city official has done business, elected, appointed, employed, otherwise, there are avenues to make complaints. We have an ethics committee, and there are avenues for those types of things that will initiate an investigation if appropriate. So I just want to encourage people, if you see behavior that you think is inappropriate, please speak up to the appropriate committee or complaint department. Those things are serious, and I do think that if there's an issue that needs to be investigated, that we should take those to the right people. That's why we have an ethics committee, is to make sure that everything is being followed, including the city charter. I'm not sure because there weren't specifics on that complaint, but the appropriate avenue for an ethics complaint is the ethics committee. And that is all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Any other counselors? Councilor Piazza.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I want to thank all the constituents that have come out and spoke very passionately. I do want to emphasize that is passionate. And the reason I want to say that is one of the things I do want to say is there was a statement about single moms, different races, different cultures, and feeling prejudice against. I want to say that I am a single mom, and things are not fair. And I do want to say I empathize with that, because that has happened to me in different arenas. And I don't forget about you all. I think about it all the time, and I do work with employees in the same company that live at Branford. And I have written to the mayor, and I have asked for pictures from them. And they come in, they're very disgruntled, and they do state to me what their concerns are. So I don't just blow it off. I do either write to the mayor, or I document some things, and I ask what has been done, send me the form they want you to sign, and so forth. Since this is not a back and forth thing, some of the questions, I guess, could be answered later, or how it may be done, so you have to excuse me since I am new to the council, but how this all handles. So the first thing that I'd like to hear answered is down the road or by the mayor sometime, or email, whatever, is this newly bursted pipes. And I heard about the shop vac. I will review this because there's certain points I'm not really sure if I heard it correctly. I will review the video. But so a shop vac being brought in, I mean, what else is being done? You know, do we have dehumidifiers in there? And when we hear all these complaints, the thing that settles with this, and I'll tell you why I understand this, is in the meantime, while they write, while they talk, while they visit, while they do their complaints, they're still living in areas that are obviously health concerns. And the reason I say this is because I had water damage once in my home from a kitchen pipe bursting, and went down into my basement. And all along the way, I had to check things myself. I wasn't a construction person, but you could sometimes tell that, well, this wasn't done correctly, or are you really sure that? Well, that's not what this other person said. So all these things I can truly empathize with. And then when the job was done, they had to be called back because there's a 3-year guarantee, had to be called back multiple times for things. So I really do empathize in this. And when we talk about how you're treated, and maybe I'll bring in as a single mom, a woman, is that when I did make a complaint to the Business Bureau, and I did it formally and it was out there publicly, they in turn told me how difficult I was and just tried to slew my character, which, you know, at first I said, but then I said, I know I'm telling the truth. So I totally get that. It's just, but just keep on pushing. But I guess I don't even know if I want to use the word sorrowful, but that's the way I feel, especially when Allie Fetters stood up and spoke, because when she stands there, it's even touched my heart now, because I think about if that's my daughter, if that's my child, feeling that way and concerned and afraid. So it just, I wasn't here in 2017. I did see it as I rode along the roads, seeing it being remodeled. I thought that's what was happening. And one of the other things, I'm not sure if I heard it right, I'll look back on it, is I wasn't sure if I heard that Related said they were going to strip it down to frames, but decided to just beautify or remediate. I just wanted to know that, and if that was so stated, why was it switched? So those are just some of the things that I just wanted to point out, and I just once again want to thank all who has come and all who spoke, all those who are listening, all those who review the video, and just keep on pushing.
Thank you. Councilor McCabe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too also want to thank you all for coming tonight, and every time that you come. I do appreciate hearing it. It's very emotional to listen to these stories of the things that are happening. And but my question is for the mayor, actually. What power do we as councilors have for pushing Ledge Light to do things like making holes in the walls? Because quite frankly, if I was in the apartment, I'd be making a hole in the wall and just saying, look, do we have any sort of influence to try to get that at least that policy changed so we can get those cameras behind the walls and start taking a look?
We do not have direct jurisdiction over Ledge Light, but I can talk to Stephen Mansfield, who's the director of Ledge Light.
Thank you.
Councilor Carter, you have the floor, and then you'll be next.
Just real quick, I was going to talk, everybody left though, but if you can tell the residents that left of Branford, they can contact me directly, you know, because I wanted to speak to them directly. You can look at my email on the website, or you could contact Portia or Ian. They have my cell phone number. You can contact me or text me directly, you know. So just really quick, I just want to I want to make it clear for the people that don't know this council, right? This is a very diverse council, right? And it's a council that has your best interests. So I don't mind getting yelled at. I actually get yelled at for a living. I'm a state trooper. That is what I get yelled at, you know? But what I don't want, and what kind of hurts my heart, when our residents kind of think that we don't have their best interest. You know, I'm on this council because I have your best interest. With that said, and Councilor McCabe brings up a good point, you know, we're not in a situation, us councilors that are sitting here, we're not in a situation where, okay, we know we can do something and we're just not acting, you know? If that was the case, this would have been rectified, right? From what I'm hearing is that from what I know, because I lived at Branford, when I was 4 and 5 years old, I lived in Branford. I was where you're sitting at, you know? And I have friends that live there, and I coach kids that live in Branford. So I'm very, very, very vested in Branford Manor. But from what I'm hearing is that this is a long-standing issue, you know? If buildings need to be tore down, that's a whole different discussion, you know? Drilling holes and finding out there's mold. I mean, we all know there's mold there, right? And then we also have another issue of housing, you know? In a great world, we tear down Branford and put you guys somewhere. There's nowhere to put anybody. So there's a bigger issue here, you know? So just be mindful and just to know, you know, like I said, I don't care about getting torn down or whatever. It's just to tell you guys, this council here has your best interest. I have your best interest. You know, I'm elected, I have your best interest, and you can contact me directly to discuss what possibilities or what ideas you guys have to move forward, because I don't know what the hell I can do in my seat right now. And I think you guys believe that we have some type of power that we don't have. And I'm telling you, I don't know, because if I did, it would have been done already, all right? So just putting that out there, all right? God bless you guys.
Thank you. Councilor Sheffield?
I was just curious as far as the default issue to be brought up. Is related in full default? I mean, we had voted on such a thing, but is the status still there, or is it something that if they do a certain thing, they be put off the default status? And, you know, since it's all this back and forth of, you know, if things are supposed to be being fixed, I guess everything's okay, but they're really not being fixed. So how long does that part of, you know, the default, what is that next step? Because I think people want to find out now, okay, enough is enough. When is there going to be the ultimate decision to be made? And secondly, as far as for us as a council, I think Ian brought that up, as far as would there be a referral of maybe a select committee for Branford Manor issues of one of our group meetings for a potential resident or two to come by and discuss issues, and then bring it before the committee of the whole or to you, something on a smaller scale before a group hearing, you know, a group committee. And I'm not sure if it be community development, something on that nature, just as an update as part of our group hearings. So something to think about.
Is there anyone else? Deputy Mayor Depot.
I'm sorry, but can I ask you to clarify, just because it was brought up about canceling meetings, and I personally just want to say that we don't often cancel meetings. The last in December obviously was a holiday, and I believe we've only had a few meetings canceled, and one of them was because we weren't going to have a quorum, if I'm correct. So if you could just clarify that.
So let's talk about meetings. We will have a meeting if we have business. And typically when you have a committee of the whole meeting, the committee of the whole will then have information as for discussion, deliberation, and debate is conducted, and then that will go to the next mayor and council meeting. We currently have 2 mayor and council meetings and 1 committee of the whole meeting. So what happens is you have the committee of the whole meeting, which is the last Monday of the month, and then the first Monday of the month, you then have the mayor and council meeting for that. If anything else comes up, then you have group meetings. If anything else comes up, then you would have that for the second mayor and council. The mayor and council meetings are set by charter, so you can't just change them anytime you want to change them. The committee of the whole, the charter is silent on the committee of the whole, and as a result, what I've done is we've talked about on the second and third months of the quarter that we're going to have special committee of the whole meetings for in place of committee meetings. And so since we'll have a committee of the whole meeting, we will then have the second mayor and council meeting because we will then have business. If we do not have business, then I will not schedule a meeting. And I will not put a placeholder for anything just so you can have a meeting in case somebody wants to come out and talk about something. You can contact us, and then you can come out during the committee of the mayor and council meetings and use the citizens petitions in order to speak then. But just to get everybody to come in, just in case, really is an effective use of these guys' times, and the councilors and deputy mayor are all volunteers, so I am sensitive to that. I know that some of you will not like that response, but I'm not going to hold a meeting if we do not have business for the city Groton residents. And if something comes up, then we will talk about it, and we'll put it on the agenda, and then we will have the meetings. So did that answer whose question, or somebody's question? Was your question? You asked another.
Well, yeah, I mean, as far as, like I said, we decided to go quarterly with the committee group meetings, so it ends up being less of having a group meeting. So that's where I felt that maybe a referral to a group as far as something dealing with Branford Manor could be addressed that we can, collaborate on, but nothing of,
Yep, I can talk to you about that and get back to the council. We could talk about the cow.
Right.
And because we're having a special cow next week, and we could talk about it and decide if it warrants a special meeting or a special committee, or if there's a committee now where this would fall under. So, Councilor Carter.
I came in on it, but I believe what Councilor Sheffield was saying, I do agree with that. But me for one, I mean, I'm very busy, and I know everybody's very busy, but I think that automatically gets residents to our committee meetings. And we want to hear, the stories and whatnot, right? And sometimes these meetings that we're in now aren't the forum to do that because there is no back and forth, So I think that actually is a good idea. And that way we could have some type of discussion, right? So the residents actually have a better understanding on our end too, from what we believe to know what we're actually capable of as council members. So I think that's a good idea.
Okay, anyone else? All right, so when Attorney Arscott came the first time and presented a packet of information to the council, the next day I went to the building department and said, I want a list of all the blight complaints that were made since 2016. And so Joe Summers brought that to me, and from 2016 to 2022, this is in May, there were 12 files of mold complaints. 12 in all that period of time. So, in response to why is the mayor not bringing up every time there's a mold thing to the council, it doesn't normally warrant that. The reason the council is involved now is because the size and the enormity of what happened on May 6th, 2022. The meeting of the Rock, which I attended, Deputy Mayor attended, and there were many problems that were identified. I asked people to put their names on a sheet of paper with their units and their problems, and then I went to Ledgelight, went to the building official, and then went to Related and set up a meeting for the following week, which was on a Friday, the following Friday, to meet with Related to start the work of adjudication and getting these things identified and getting them fixed. And since then, there's been a lot of things go on back and forth. Normally, I got in the middle of this, and basically we circumvented all the normal rules. We said, I'll take information from Facebook, I'll take information from individuals. You can call me, you can text me, you can send me an email. I can meet you face to face, and we will take this information, we'll get it in a database, and we'll get these things resolved. We have worked diligently since May 6th of 2022 to identify the problems and to get them fixed. As far as the comments around 2017, 2018, that was a renovation project. The paperwork says it was a renovation project. Nowhere have I ever said it was a beautification project. I have elaborated on what things were fixed there, but I have never said it was a beautification project. It was never intended to be a remediation project. So the question was, we know what Ledgelight's doing, what is the building inspector doing? So we have approximately 1,200 inspections that we will be conducting by the end of February, in addition to the hundreds of inspections that we have already completed. Some only take a few minutes, some take several hours in order to inspect. There's major work that is being conducted at Branford Manor now. I do want to reiterate what the counselors have said and thank everyone for coming out. And I'm sorry for the situation that you're in and what you're going through. This is not the way that I want it. I have John Burt and I, the town manager, and I talk to Related every week, and we get status reports. We ask a lot of questions. When things come up, we ask questions to them to find out what they're going to do and how they're going to adjudicate these problems. So we are actively working on it. During the remediation, inspections were made and corrected, and then the documentation of that are the certificates of occupancy for the units. That is the final official record. The bursted pipe, there's a question about the status of that. I saw the Facebook post yesterday about one bursted pipe. These bursted pipes here occurred on Saturday. I saw the one yesterday that Christine Santos posted, and I called Shonda Harrison in order to get people over there to take care of that. And then based on the information that I got this evening, I'm going to be talking to Shonda and some other people about what are they going to do about the bursted pipes and how they're going to fix that. Because if we have water damage, it's more than just letting it dry out. You're going to have to rip up boards and stuff like that. So I want to know what that game plan is. So the bursted pipes happened. They had several bursted pipes this weekend, based on Facebook, but also based on talking to Related this morning, or to Branford Manor this morning. I didn't talk to Related this morning. Okay, a couple things. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Nope.
I just forgot to mention one thing. I was going to put this in my communications and reports, but it's about the whole Branford Manor situation a little bit. Senator Summers has introduced, she's the minority, what is she? She's the...
Minority whip?
Nope.
Oh.
It just left my head. Yeah, she's a ranking minority member of the Public Health Committee, and she is working on pushing through the legislation for mold standards that don't currently exist. And I had a conversation with her a couple weeks ago now, and we discussed the possibility of, I know it's changed since COVID, but when they have open testimony, she's going to try to get as many spots for Groton people affected by mold. So keep an eye out, follow her on Facebook. I'm pretty sure that she's posts on there frequently about it, but I think they do a lottery system now for testifying on bills. I'm not sure how they do it, but
I just testified that I just testified.
but so I would contact, if you're interested in commenting or helping Senator Summers to push through a bill on mold standards, please contact her, because she is, that's kind of, from my conversation with her, it's a high priority for her to get that pushed through. So I know that I'm trying to keep in touch with her, but I would just encourage people to try to keep track of that, because I think that gives us more to enforce, because right now we can only enforce laws that are on the books. We can't enforce things that we feel are wrong, unfortunately, and we're really trying to get more, get those standards in place so that we can enforce them, so that this doesn't ever happen again. That's one of kind of another thing that's going on alongside it. So I just want to encourage people to pay attention to that. Contact your state representatives and state senator to help with those issues.
Councilor McKay?
Yes, something you said sparked a question. So you said the building inspector has many inspections to post renovation or post remediation inspections to do.
Right.
Can we have them call the resident before they go in and just have that conversation? Have you been in your apartment? Have you seen the changes that have been put in effect? What is your opinion? Were things done, so that when they go in, they have that knowledge and they can actually look at those specific items to make sure that it's done. So you have that second check. It just makes a lot of sense to me.
Well, let me talk to Joe about that. I know that is not current procedure. Let me talk to him about.
It just sounds like, you can't, there has to be that second check, that follow-up, because I think it just sounds like it's not being done.
Well, okay.
Forewarned is forearmed.
Well, yep, I understand. He has an inspection criteria that he uses for that, and it's not, I will talk to Joe Summers. Okay. So there were a couple things Mr. Boucher talked about. FOIs, so November 15th, he said, under the Connecticut Freedom of Information Act 1-200 at SEEK, I am requesting an opportunity to view and copy all public records concerning any legal fees incurred by the City of Groton since 2018 related to Branford Manor. And then in November 30th, same thing, I'm requesting the opportunity to view and copy all emails, reports, and other public records concerning Branford Manor received or sent from the mayor's office since 2018. So you're talking about a 5-year span, and there are lots of records that we have to go through and we have to evaluate. And I have one staff member that can do that. And so I have her working on that sometime. I have some time set aside every week for her to work on that. But like I said, there are 5 years worth of records, the billing. All our legal bills come in, so that means they would all have to be looked at and evaluated. We have contacted the attorney's office and asked them to see if they can basically try to narrow it down, but they're not consistent in the verbiage that's used. So we want to make sure that we're doing our adequate diligence there in order to provide the right information. So there was also discussion last time I saw in the minutes about an FBI meeting, and there was a question about that the FBI went to Mr. Boucher to get information and that we didn't have the information. There was an intimation that we didn't keep the records. The fact is we had the record. We destroyed a record in accordance with procedure from the state librarian's office. And I do have documentation of that. So when the FBI asked for it, it was after the retention period, and therefore that record did not exist anymore. And that's that. Who? Oh, sorry. Councilor McCabe.
Yes, it sounds like with one person going through all those records for 5 years, could they go year to year, quarter to quarter, maybe distribute out a quarter at a time? Therefore, we are providing information. It might not be all in one chunk, but to distribute. So at least there's a flow.
We could contact him and see if he's willing to do that. In the past, he's not wanted that. He's wanted them all at one shot.
Okay, I think it's worth asking him because some is, getting a consistent flow is probably better than nothing.
I'll just elaborate a little bit on the deputy said about testimony. All bills are usually raised in the committee, and then if selected and passed and screened, they'll be given a public hearing. If you're interested in doing any testimony, they do take oral and written testimony, which can be submitted to the committee, and it will be posted for public record. So on her point, it's definitely, for all residents, definitely submit some sort of testimony when that bill does come up.
Okay. All right. Anything else? Okay, we'll move on. To what?
Can we take a 5-minute recess?
Yes. Okay, we will take a 5-minute recess. Was that off before? Okay, so we weren't recording. Okay. I made a comment. Okay, thank you. Okay, we're out of recess. We are back in session. We will move on to the approval of the minutes. We'll take a motion to approve the mayor and council minutes of 1/3/23.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Take a motion to approve a special committee meeting, the special committee of the whole meeting for 1/23/23.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any corrections to those minutes? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Communication reports. Councilor Norris.
None at this point.
Councilor McCabe.
Nothing to report.
Councilor Sheffield.
We have the group, on January 9th, our Group 2 committee meeting. On the Finance Committee, we voted 3-0 to remove the Mother Bailey House as a referral since the purchase of the property. So we no longer have to address that issue any longer. And then on January 31st, Councilor McCabe, who you do have something on, we came here to the Municipal building to assess the Groton utilities and the IT department. So, and Councilor McCabe was outstanding in her questioning, reviewing the logistics of the department. So, and thank you. And I'm, learning a lot from you as far as how the IT operates. So, it was a great job. So, that's all.
Okay. Councilor Piazza.
Thank you, Mayor. Did the committee meeting, but also too came for the tour and also the discussion with IT, and it was very beneficial. I'm glad it was offered to us, and I appreciate their time and all their efforts that they're doing.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Carter.
I wasn't able to make the Groton City of Groton's Black History Month flag raising, or ceremony rather, but just the timing. But I was able to make the towns, and it was a good event. So I'm glad both city and town is going to do that annually. I think that's big time.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. On January 6th, I guess was, we had our committee meetings, and I just wanted to comment that we're still working with economic development on changes to Thames Street, changes to bikeability, walkability. I know that, now the holidays are over and people might start paying more attention, have a little more time. I would just encourage anyone who has ideas for economic development to please follow our city Facebook page and the website and check out our economic development website. And there's lots of opportunities for input. And I'm the chair of the public safety, but the items that are on my committee agenda are kind of dependent on what economic development is doing on Thames Street. So that's why I'm bringing it up. So I just want to encourage all the residents that if they are interested in the possible changes to Thames Street or anywhere in the city, the new park that we have, I know there's been some posts about Thames View Park. I want to encourage people to get out and check out our parks. And like I said, if you have any comments or input, please contact our Economic Development Department because they are always wanting input of the residents whenever possible. On January 27th, I volunteered at the food box distribution with Clerk Jacome. And I just want to encourage people. I did 12 deliveries, I think, that day. I want to encourage people to please contact us if you need food. I also got a couple of questions about other resources, and the Groton Human Services building, they have a food locker there that you can get an appointment for. You do not have to wait for these food box distributions, you can call and get an appointment with Groton Human Services, and they have resources that they can provide to you as well. The next food box distribution is on February 24th at 12:30 at St. John's Christian Church. Again, if you need a delivery, please contact myself or the mayor's office. And if not, we will see you in line at the distribution at St. John's. Lastly, I just wanted to say I finally got COVID, and I am outside the CDC window, so I'm allowed to be in public now. But I just want to encourage people to stay vigilant, because it's not just COVID, it's flu, RSV. There's a lot of sicknesses going around, and I actually did not have severe symptoms the morning that I took a test that popped positive. I just kind of felt off. So I just want to encourage people, if you don't have tests at home, I had 4 because I had gotten them from, I think, the Postal Service or wherever, but I had them available at home. If you don't have any available at home, please contact, we still have some in the clerk's office, right?
Yep.
Please contact us. You can pick them up here. It was so helpful I didn't have to go out and get them. I had kept them at home for this instance so that I wouldn't have to do that. So I just want to encourage people to be vigilant and take care of yourself and take care of your surroundings. I should not be contagious, but I'm being extra careful because I figured we'd be here a long time. So I just want to say that as kind of a PSA. And again, if you need a COVID test, we put them for the food box distribution this last time in January. They were in the boxes. So anyone that I delivered to, anyone that came through the drive-through, got COVID tests and got masks and hand sanitizer. So there are resources available. So please, please, please take care of yourself and your friends and neighbors, and try not to spread germs. Thank you.
Thank you. Clerk Jacome.
No, I also, like Deputy Mayor Depot said, attended the food box distribution, and also that we did have a Black History Month here as I was working, and it was here. So 2 birds, 1 stone. It was an awesome, beautiful event. Glad to have it.
It was a great event. Councilor Piazza.
I just want to say thank you for the food distribution boxes, and that I had contacted Deputy Mayor Depot, and she did deliver to some people that I knew that were in need. They were not aware, and I'm not sure how much more we could put it out, that it can be delivered. So one of our employees had put it out there when it was out there, but they didn't know it could be delivered. So I am constantly spreading out the news, but I'm just trying to think of another way, or if we have a flyer and I could, post it at my work, at least I could do that so they're aware. But they're very, very, I want to extend their thanks to those who work there, and also to Deputy Mayor Depot for delivering. I appreciate that.
So for those of you that are out in the television audience, if you're in need of food, if your food's deprived, please call the mayor's office at 860-446-4103, and we'll get your name and address, and we'll get food delivered to you if you can't make it. Okay, moving on, committee referrals. Anything? Okay. New business. Councilor Norris.
Your Honor, 8-230206. Therefore, be resolved that the mayor and council approve the fiscal year 2024 police department budget. I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. This was discussed during the committee of the whole. Is there any additional discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Councilor McCabe.
Do I say the ordinance?
We got a
Nope, the resolution's at the end.
Nope, you got the therefore be it resolved on page 4.
Yep.
To the, which, yeah. Yeah, but what's the,
Where's the beginning of the?
yeah, what's the begin? Is it a resolution or the ordinance? Is this for the
It's the
ordinance?
ordinance.
Okay, ordinance 199, Therefore, be it resolved that the mayor and council finally approve an ordinance concerning smoking/vaping in the city-owned public buildings, parks, and recreation areas. I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. This has been discussed. It was initially approved almost a month ago. It was in the newspaper. It will be in the newspaper again, I think for a period of 7 days following the vote tonight. Councilor Carter.
Is that correct? I've never seen, I understand what she's saying. I've never seen a resolution without a resolution. Like it's ordinance 199? Is that appropriate to do?
Yes.
Or just to say ordinance 99?
Yeah.
I just don't, okay.
Because you're approving the ordinance. This is the final approving of the ordinance.
But it doesn't have to be a resolution to approve the ordinance?
Right, that's what I was thinking too. I always thought there was a resolution attached to that ordinance.
So technically, based on precedent, I mean, there could be using the resolution. Technically, it's not required because as a resolution is a stance of opinion on what the city of Groton stands for, while the ordinance is the actual legislation and law. And actually, that's something we're working on internally as well, on if a resolution is actually needed for an ordinance or an ordinance is needed to repeal an ordinance. We're looking into that as well.
Yeah, that's true.
But technically, a resolution is a form of opinion, so an ordinance is just an ordinance. You don't need a resolution for the ordinance.
If you're uncomfortable with this, I can pull this and have Sue take a look at it.
I'm fine with that. I just haven't seen it. It's the first time I've seen us move on something that doesn't have a resolution, ever.
Is that something that's in the charter?
I don't know. I just have a question.
That doesn't have to be in the charter? Or is
No,
it?
there's nothing in the charter.
It's not in the charter. Deputy Mayor Depot.
Is it fair to say that we were previously doing a resolution to approve an ordinance when we could have just approved the ordinance? Is that
Correct.
what you're saying?
You do the initial and the final.
You're saying it's not needed.
Yes,
And
not
this
you,
is the-
technically.
this is the-
Necessarily, yes, correct.
Right, this is the final approval of the ordinance.
I got you.
There's just precedent in the back that people were following.
Okay, any other question or comment? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Deputy Mayor Depot.
Thank you, Mayor. Resolution R-23-2-7, therefore be it resolved that the mayor and council approve the fiscal year 2024 Highway Department budget. I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. This was discussed during the committee of the whole. Do you have any additional, is there any additional comments? Are there any additional comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Councilor Sheffield.
Thank you, Mayor. Resolution R-23-02-08. Therefore, be it resolved that the mayor and council authorize and approve the purchase of replacement parts from CN Wood Enviro LLC, 25A Bernhard Road, New Haven, Connecticut, for a total cost of $18,606.56 to be paid from the approved fiscal year 23 highway operating budget. I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. This was discussed at the committee of the whole, and we did order the parts last week, just so that you know, because we talked about that before. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Councilor Piazza.
Thank you, Mayor. Resolution -23-02-09. Therefore be it resolved that the mayor and council authorize and approve the city of Groton to purchase 4 sets of Morning Pride tails, structural turnout gear from Municipal Emergency Services, 172 Crossroad, Waterford, Connecticut, 06385, for a cost of $17,180.00 to be paid from funds in the approved fiscal year 2023 Fire Department operating budget. I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. This was discussed at the committee of the whole. Is there any additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Councilor Carter.
R-23-2-10, therefore Therefore, be resolved that the mayor and council authorize Groton Utilities Management to issue a purchase order to Scan Optics, 169 Progress Drive, Manchester, Connecticut, a preferred vendor for an amount not to exceed $14,537.05, including 10% contingency, to digitize and index the design and construction files associated with the water treatment plant rebuild project and upload scan files into the shared drive to access digitally, to be paid from the available fiscal year 2023 water cash. I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any, this was discussed during the committee of the whole. Is there any additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Councilor Norris.
R-23-02-11, therefore be it resolved that the mayor and council authorize Groton Utilities Management to issue a purchase order to Thai Sales Water and Wastewater Supplies, 36 Hudson Road, Route 27, Sudbury, Massachusetts, for the purchase of replacement of 6, 8, and 10-inch meters with associated parts, equipment, and labor to install AMR meters for Pfizer, the Montville, and Mohegan Sun region and Groton Airport in the amount of $106,836.12 to be paid from the fund available in the approved water bond fund. I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. This was discussed during the committee of the whole. Is there any additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Councilor McCabe.
Resolution R-23-2-12. Therefore, be it resolved that the mayor and council authorize Groton Utilities Management to issue a purchase order to Wright Pierce Engineers, 169 Main Street, 700 Plaza, Middlesex, Middletown, Connecticut, for an amount not to exceed $166,430.00, including a 10% contingency to provide construction administration for the operations building HVAC upgrade project at the wastewater treatment facility, 311 Thames Street, to be paid from sewer bonded capital. I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. This was discussed during the committee of the whole. Is there any additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Me, Deputy Mayor Depot.
Thank you, Mayor. Resolution R-23-2-13. Therefore, be it resolved that the mayor and council approve the purchase of real estate from Kyla Adams Property, LLC, namely 391 Long Hill Road, Groton, Connecticut, for an amount not to exceed $475,000.00, which includes anticipated closing costs and associated legal fees common to real estate transactions as estimated by the city's legal counsel, to be paid from funds available in the approved 2022-2023 electric non-bonded capital budget, and that Mayor Keith Hedrick be authorized to sign closing documents for the purchase. I so move.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Okay, who's presenting? Bring the team up. Everybody grab a chair.
Go this way. Good.
My intent is to have this team present to the council before we go for a vote on this.
Will we have an opportunity to ask our questions?
Absolutely. So
Should we after, or?
Well, if we ask the questions now, I was going to have them give a presentation, then you ask the questions, and then based on that back and forth, whatever it requires, I'm going to ask, does the council have enough information in order to vote? And if the answer is yes, then I'll ask for an up or down vote. If the answer is no, I'll ask, do you want to move this motion to a later date, meaning not a later date, later date meeting, which is the next mayor and council meeting, so that they would have time to get information to answer your additional questions.
Okay.
Depending on how council wants to move. Okay, with that, who's leading?
I can start.
We did show a few people around the space and answer a few questions, so that might actually have bred more questions or not. We'll see. But if we step back for a second and look at the context, space has been an issue since the day I got here, which will be 8 years in May. And we've been struggling with what to do with space that entire time. I believe when Sue talked, she made it very apparent that space started as an issue here back as far as the early 2000s, 3 directors ago. So the goal is to give the people living in this building enough room to actually breathe and do their job and collaborate together. What we have been doing as of late, well, 5 years ago, we came to the council. We actually had a bit of a time, and the whole council went for a tour of all the spaces. At that point, we had approval to add money for lease into the utilities budget. We added about $90,000 to the utility budget. It was in the budget for 3 years, but to tell you the truth, it was my fault that I couldn't bring us to cut a long-term lease, because it feels like you're just burning money and you're not getting anything for it. So we kept working and discovered that with the building of the filtration plant, we were going to have a generator building opening up. So we immediately, about 1.5 years ago, started working on what it would take to use that as extra space opening up, being that that was a building there. But unfortunately, it doesn't have restrooms, and it needed to have a little bit bigger space, because what we're actually looking for is an IT area that has a training room with computers and everything, so that we can bring people in and have them work with IT people one-on-one, because that actually is very useful and handy. The reason IT was chosen is when we did walk the council around, the council didn't want the administration to leave. That's me and the people that are close to me. And they really didn't want the finance people to leave, because it makes sense to keep the finance people close to city finance and create a bigger group, which has actually happened with the integration of Director Uhas into the utility. So that has been very effective. And when I watch the effectiveness of what's happening with the finance group, we have created such a level of efficiency of the way that group operates that we know that bringing the 3 city employees that work for Groton Utilities that run Bosra Light and Power down to this space, bringing them together as a result of one of them submitting a retirement recently, we're not making the decision to do a direct person-for-person refill yet until we get that team working together. We might refill that position, we might not, but we actually, the team, the finance group got together and said, we need to bring those 3 people down before we make the decision to refill it. So that's actually what we're trying to do, is bring work units together. The IT group, the last group that had to stay in this building was customer service, and customer service has a portion of customer service which is called business development. Business development does the big accounts, customer service does everybody else, and the 2 might cross in the middle. Business development also runs conservation funds, which are front end should be run by customer service for the day-to-day, but the back end engineering and all that is run by business development. So those are the groups that we've targeted to get into this building. IT has 11 people, and they only have 700 square feet?
768.
768 square feet. So it's totally unreasonable to expect 11 people to be in 700 square feet. Additionally, when that group was all pulled into the bullpen, there is definitely an increase in absenteeism due to sickness, because we're putting people too close, and at this point, after everything we've learned with COVID, it's probably not wise for us to go down that road. Moving IT, this has nothing to do with moving IT, but it happens to be the group that's the right size that actually can function outside of this building, because about 50% or more of all their duties are outside of this building in other buildings, whether it be the wastewater treatment facility, whether it be at operations. Already, more than half of the utility lives in the town at operations at Pequannock, over by the reservoir. So, being unwilling to cut a lease and then discovering that redoing the generator building was going to cost $1.7 million. Again, I joked to spend money. People may not think that the utility's cheap. The utility is extremely thrifty with the way we spend our money. We're very planned, we're very organized, and we are very deliberate with every move that we make. We have an approved capital plan, and with the amount of things we need to change in space, it's going to take the better part of 8 to 10 years to get it done at this point. So what did we do when that was 1.7? Bruce got his team together and started looking at different options. He started looking at different options over at operations. He started to look at different options over in this building, and then anything in the middle. We revived, you have in your packets a spreadsheet of actually all the buildings that were looked at. It says whether they're in the city, whether they're out of the city. It says the addresses. It says whether they met the criteria or not. Is there probably 35 different places?
There were 28 originally, and then the additional list that the building official and the mayor provided.
So in total, it's about 35 different properties we've looked at, plus everybody that's toured. It was very interesting for me to watch. Every time a counselor asked about a property, I'm pretty sure you got a direct answer is, yes, we saw that. This is why, this is why, this is why. If there's any we didn't address, please let us know. But I'm very comfortable we did address just about every property that was brought up. So people ask why. So we started to look around. When we looked around, the best place we could find with a preference to purchase, but not a requirement, because if we found the perfect property to lease, we could do that. We came up with this place, 391 Long Hill Road, at a fairly decent price. It's a price that a lot of people can't buy a house for, and it's newly renovated. The reason the utility is looking to buy rather than lease is a lease goes on to the run rate of cash expenses, which gets put directly into the rate as an expenditure every year. So the rate has to be able to pay for the expense going out. The utility does have cash on hand in a planned, pre-approved capital program, of which facilities is part of that. By buying a property, we actually buy the property, it's a one-time expense, and it gets capitalized. This property would be capitalized over the next 30 years. The run rate that goes into the rate at that point is 1/30th of the amount we spend. So instead of being $100,000 a year, it would be on the order of magnitude of $10,000 or $15,000 a year. So, so that's why the utility prefers to buy it. Additionally, when we were talking with the commission, they said, well, geez, do you think you get more money back? Do you think you get less money back? Well, in the end, it doesn't really matter, because we're going to get something roundabout, probably maybe what we spent. So that money will come right back into the capital program, and it'll be available for future projects. We do not have the intent to keep this property more than 10 years. However, when we are done with the property, the utility will come to this council, say, we don't need this property anymore, we would like to sell it. It is an asset, will be an asset of the utility at that point. Council at that point can decide what to do with it. If the council does not declare it excess property, it cannot be sold. So it'll have to be dealt with. I'd assume that the only reason that would happen is if the city has a purpose for it. But not being in the city, the council may not have a purpose for it. So there's a good to buy outside of the city for the utility in that manner, and that we will be able to recover our costs because it won't be needed. It's bad because it's not in the city. Truly, we did look at every single property in the city. If we could buy a property in the city, we would. Would we spend twice as much for it? I don't know. The thrifty part of me shies away from that. And actually, we may have to cross fiscal years because that would probably break this year's budget. But we probably, at that point, even if it did cost twice as much and it didn't need a bunch of renovations, we could probably come to you and ask, and the run rate on the rate would be small enough if we're using cash that it might work. But we could not find anything reasonable that we wouldn't have to put a lot of money into. This place, we do not have to put a lot of money into, and it is not foreseen that we will have to put a lot of money into it over the next 8 years or so. Maybe I talked too much.
Councilor McCabe, your hand was up first, then Deputy Mayor Depot next.
All right. So first of all, I want to thank you for presenting again tonight and for giving us the tours so we could walk around. I had two basic questions in my mind when I was coming into your tour. Do we need to move to a new space? Is there a need for IT to move? And secondly, was the whole concept of renting versus leasing. I needed to understand that a little bit better. I think you've explained that. I personally, I feel that you've done your due diligence in looking at, if I look at my list, I counted 18 city properties that you considered. You have specific needs, ADA compliance, the amount of space that you need, parking for the employees, and the concept of how much renovations do you need to put into the building to be serviceable. I have a little bit of a problem leasing a place and then spending lots of money to fix it up. I appreciate that you're being fiscally responsible. I would not want to pay double or triple the amount to keep it in the city. I think it does need to be in the right proximity to all the places you have to go to. And I, as a counselor, I don't have an issue with the location of this property. So I just wanted to put that out there. I would prefer, of course, it be in the city, but I think that you did the right thing in choosing a place so that the costs were not, astronomical. So the question of, do we actually need to do this if we're having to move in 7 to 10 years, which was the plan? You said 7 years. We all know that if you say 7 years, it's probably 10. So I 100% agree that the space for the IT department is not enough. There's a lot of people. It's not even one big room of 768 square feet. It's a couple of little rooms with people wedged in there with a lot of peripherals, a lot of equipment. It's not conducive to a very collaborative environment. So I 100% agree, especially if you want to pull down your 3 Basra people so you can get that knowledge transfer going for the person that's going to be retiring, so you can make some assessments on whether you need to hire someone else. So there's been talk about using our the gymnasium or the auditorium, whatever we call it. I do not think that that would be a good environment for the IT department, and also I think it is a resource to the city that we use on a regular basis. I would be 100% against us putting IT in that room. It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. I think that the blood drives, COVID vaccinations, our farmers market, the fife and drum, which I didn't hear tonight, but they're usually there. They're every Monday. Oh, I didn't hear them. Okay, so I mean, it's a resource for the city, and I don't think we can take it away for the next 7 to 10 years. So I also appreciate that you provided some documentation. I actually did ask for this at the tour of the cost of leasing leasing versus owning and then selling. Even the amount, if we sold it for the amount that we paid for it in 7 to 10 years, you'd still be at the end spending a lot less money, significantly less money than you would if we were just to buy it. This property seemed like it had the least amount of upgrades that you'd have to do to modify the place to make it the space that you need it to be, especially when you're looking for a space that has that training room where you can have people come in. So it seems like that didn't even seem like you had that space here to do that function. So you could increase your value to the city and to the departments that you serve, having this a space like this. So I am fully in support this resolution.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Depot.
Okay, I'm gonna try not to ask all my questions at once because it's gonna be a lot. I also took a tour, and I want to thank I actually got a chance to chat with several employees. I went around the entire building, including the police department and the basement, which if the other counselors didn't get a chance to see the locker rooms, the police locker rooms that were fixed up, they look so nice, so much better now. They have the old lockers down there so you can compare to these teeny tiny lockers that they couldn't fit their gear in, and now they have real lockers that they can fit their stuff in. So I want to thank the chief for following that project through, because I think, we want our police officers to stay here, and one of the things that keeps employees is a good work environment or a place to put your stuff when you're at work. So a couple of things. Can you remind me how long we've had a space issue in IT?
In 2004, when the original engineering group moved out of the building over to operations and Thames Valley Communications moved in, we've had issues for space that impacted IT. There were a number of things that were done within the utility, including a portable building just outside the southeast corner of the building. We've been moved into smaller and smaller spaces. The department has grown, but we've been moved into smaller and smaller spaces to accommodate the growth of other departments. Thames Valley Atlantic Broadband Breeze Line has recently vacated spaces. They did some leaving in the building when COVID came. They left their front counter and also customer service area and did not return after COVID. Those areas have been designated for the customer service department. The ABB offices in the back of the building went to HR, and the most recent offices that were vacated are right now in the process of being renovated, remediated and renovated, and are potentially or temporarily at least going to be used for Basra employees. The only other space that was vacated was a big open space. It was a cube space. So we've basically had problems since 2004 with the incoming Thames Valley employees and then the growth in the size of the department.
So 18 years, 19 years.
Yeah, it's, you know, gotten worse in the past few, but
When was the last time, so currently we have a plan to remodel operations to fit IT over there, correct?
Yeah, we're working on the conceptual design right now.
Okay. When was the last time that we remodeled or did any kind of building in operations?
When I arrived in operations, we actually upgraded the entire middle of operations, and it got converted from holding 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people to 19 people. So that was the first renovation done immediately upon my arrival.
So you said that was how many years ago?
So that was 7 years ago now.
It probably was done about 4.
So
5 years ago it was completed.
Okay. So part of my frustration with this whole thing is that at that point then, IT had had space problems for 12 years. And your intent in the future is to move them to operations. And you had a remodel project in operations, but you didn't include IT at that time. So I find that a lot of the GU projects that come to us or resolutions are, hey, this problem just came up. But the thing is, this problem didn't just come up. So, and I understand that we work under constraints of budget and everything at the time, but we're being presented with this as a super urgent issue when there have been projects that have included increasing employees over in operations before, and the plan was not previously to buy another building, right? The plan was to put them in operations. So, sorry. So that's a little frustrating conceptually because there clearly is a plan, but then it's almost like, oh, but IT doesn't fit in their space, so what are we going to do about that? And again, with the utility, it seems to happen fairly often that things, I don't know if we're not bouncing ideas off the right number of people or what, but if IT's had this problem for so long, I don't understand why it's not been included in the other plans of operations a little bit. And I understand that there might be a lot of reasons why, but I'm just letting you know, overarching, it's kind of my first kind of reaction to that information. And I just want to ask a couple questions, and then I'll let you respond if that's okay. So I did a tour. I spent a lot of time in the building this morning. I spent over 2 hours walking around, talking to employees, and I saw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 empty offices. And I know that we did this space study we did in 2017, I think, was it, 18? And it seemed like we had a cohesive plan of where we're moving the puzzle pieces. And we put building downstairs, and I thank you for the list because you sent the list of all the things that, I don't know who put this together, but the list of all the changes that have been made since this space study. And we have done a significant amount of moving people around, making space for more people. I was told that, and I wish I had asked the Public Works Director to stay, but Public Works is moving into some of the empty office space behind customer service. Is that correct?
So the goal is to fix the space issues for the entire building occupants. And that wouldn't, in order to do that, we would need to move some of the people that are currently on this side of the building over to the other half, the utility side of the building, the other half of the building. And in order to do that, that actually frees space up for the inhabitants on this side of the building. So there's actually, if you look at it, once IT is removed, there's no empty space. Just like when we created from 9 office area to 16? 19, there was no empty space then either. Operations was so cramped in other places, we created cubicles that people could actually work at, and immediately all those desks were full. So it wasn't like we were creating space that people could just move into, because all the slots were full with existing people. The same thing's going on in this building, and I think we use this analogy with a couple of tours. If you go to Cracker Barrel, you got a triangle game that you have to pull a golf tee out, and then you hop the golf tees around to get it empty. Nothing works until you have one spot empty. And that magic size in this building happens to be about 10 people. So bringing 3 in or 3 out has no effect. It's that magic size to allow a slot just large enough to let us start moving the parts and pieces in this building for the next 5 years or so to slowly fix it. We've been moving very slowly, very deliberately, and very thoughtfully. The end point over in operations is currently very similar to what you saw with the new locker rooms with the policemen. If you go to electric ops, you have a lunchroom that's about half the size of this council chambers that 32 guys eat in, 32 guys change their clothes in with their lockers around the edge. 32 guys have a very old set of restrooms there, and there's one shower that's as big as this chair, because you got to go like this when you shower. There's human issues over at operations that need to be repaired. So additionally, the garage that the electric department parks in currently does not handle the full functioning fleet that needs to be inside, especially in the winter. So what's happening and why this is taking so long is we can only afford so much so fast. So the electric garage at this point looks like it'll be rebuilt. The current electric is a new garage. The vehicles will move over there. The current garage will get renovated to become the new electrical space to allow all the electricians, the 32 people in that division, to move into a new space with locker rooms and restrooms that are appropriate. Then that leaves empty the whole middle of the building, which will actually give space to allow for a couple of extra offices, because I work out of both places. A couple of other, Linda also has, we actually share an office over there that's as big as a couple of these desks put together. And actually, it's very busy. So a couple of administrative slots with the ability to make IT comfortable with a training room that is conducive to just bringing Sue's whole group together. So that's why it's going to take a number of years, because we want to do it very thoughtfully with consideration of our pre-programmed capital spend rate.
Oh, okay.
If I could just follow up to that, the IT department isn't the only one with a space problem. The entire building is, as is operations. So it's not just us, and it's been a condition that's been going on for quite a long time.
Yes, I get that. Last time, at the last meeting, we asked about the TVC lease, and you said that the TVC lease was ending at the end of January. Is that right?
The TVC, which is actually now Breeze Line,
right.
It was converted over. If they didn't want to leave, that lease was like forever. They would have been here. Breeze Line happened to just move all its people out, and you see us renovating to move customer service into the new area. You also have us making accommodations to grab those offices and renovate them, do away with the asbestos that's under the carpets, put in new stuff. So TVC will be inhabiting the head end, which is the very, it's the center room in the back of the building, which is fairly large, until probably the end of this calendar year. After that, they will be out of there. They just recently moved out of the 3 offices you saw today, plus they had a bunch of desks in the hallway.
If I may interject something real quick. If you look at your space study that was sent to you, you'll notice that the police department was not listed in there when we did, period. When we did our space study, the police department was not put in there. Because we wanted to look at everybody else because we think that maybe with the police department, the size that they may need could require another building. So we didn't look directly at the police department, but Chief and I are looking now to see if some of these spaces that are here, the 2 empty rooms right around the corner, and then where Bill and Tony are, if that would help them with some of their space needs. And then, so it's all, it's all tied in together. Everybody has had some space issues. If you go look at the space studies, some of the space recommendations are probably more than are needed. It may be a little generous in some cases, but we did move the building guys. We got most of the departments moved. We're still looking down on the GU side, and there have been some spaces that have opened up now that Breeze Line is now gone. So I don't know if that helps, but it gives you additional information.
Well, so I just want to, I guess, clarify my question. So their lease is not up, is what you're saying? Because at the last meeting, you said that the TVC lease was going to be up at the end of January.
The TVC is leaving.
Okay, but they're still occupying this giant space in the back of the building.
And they will, and when they decide to leave and hand it to us, their lease will be over.
Okay, hold on. Let me interject because I know the question you're trying to ask, I think. I'm going to try to answer your question. All Breeze Line personnel have evacuated the building. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay, so there are no Breeze Line personnel here in the building. There is still space. The head end is the space that is currently being leased by Breeze Line. Is there any other additional space that is being leased by Breeze Line? Is that what you're trying to get to?
Kind of. My next question is there no provision in that lease for us to terminate that lease?
No.
So then I guess question, if those offices behind customer service, those offices that TVC has now vacated, if those weren't being, so I'll show you because on the map. So here, it's these 3 offices here. So is Public Works taking all 3 of those offices? They're on the other side of the wall from...
There is a conceptual plan that allows there to be room for people on this side of the building to expand toward all the way through the head end, which would require Public Works to move to those 3 offices. And we believe that we, at that point, may, and this is very preliminary, have fixed 90% of the space issues in this building with its current inhabitants.
Okay.
Without IT in as part of it.
So the other thing I noticed is that we have 2 offices on this side of the building. One I think is C10, and then there's a conference room that are vacant. Obviously, that would not be ideal space for IT. It's not enough space, and it's wouldn't make any sense. But I find it odd that HR is buried in the back of the utility when there's a space in the middle of the building that would be a suitable amount of space for HR and would clear space that IT could expand into. And so I'm not trying to be difficult, but I think I know that the utility, that you run the utility like a business, because it is a business. But from our perspective and my perspective, it is a publicly owned entity that answers to the public, and we answer to the public. And I feel like the public is not, certainly they've made their voice heard on this issue. I've heard from a lot of people that they're unhappy with this potential move. And so I think for me personally, I am wary of making a change that people aren't okay with. And I know we had a discussion earlier, taxpayer, ratepayer, there's a difference. And this move is funded by the ratepayer, not the taxpayer, which is a distinction that some taxpayers don't recognize the difference, but it is a different group of people. But we are still responsible to them. We have a fiduciary duty to make sure that every step taken is fiscally responsible. I will try to end my questioning for now with, so you provided this list of properties that you looked at. There's the list on the bottom were the ones that were recently added, correct?
That's correct.
So the ones on top, some of these were looked at pre-COVID, so some of them probably aren't even available anymore. And
these were the first list.
Yep, the one on top.
That list were all properties that we had gotten from MLS.
Okay, and these are all, so like some of them say pre-COVID, so these were all looked at before we had this discussion several weeks ago, right?
Correct.
Okay, so all of these properties down here are ones that were added since we had discussions at this meeting?
Last meeting.
Okay, and so how did we vet these properties?
So all of them were reviewed if there was a listing online or information that was available, or phone calls made to, the mayor had provided some information for leasing. In others where there was no information available, I looked up what I could online to find out what the square footage might be, if the property was for sale. So all the notations are all information that I was able to gather. On the ones that say C above, those are properties that we had already reviewed on the previous list. The majority of this list came from Joe Summers, the building official, and he provided information at the time when he provided the list. So for instance, Flats Tattoo was available for sale for 1,200 square feet. That's the information that he gave us. So there wasn't any need to look any further into that. I did make phone calls on the former Paul's TV. I was able to get a phone number for that. I was able to get a phone number for the property adjacent to Paul's TV. The retail storefront at 392 Eastern Point Road didn't require any additional conversation, nor did the retail and automotive location. The buildings themselves not suitable, and the amount of renovation would be too great. And then the only other item that was reviewed and discussed was 404 Thames Street. They have property available at third floor. It is ADA compliant. However, they would not allow us dedicated parking.
Who did you speak with at 404 Thames Street?
404 Thames Street was Russ Realty.
And they said
Randy
they would
Russ
not.
From Russ Realty, and he said that it is a shared parking lot, and they don't designate specific parking. I attempted to call, what was the name on the video that you sent?
Robert Boris.
Did not answer calls and did not have voice message available, so I made several attempts, but I was not able to reach him. That's Command Technology, I believe.
Considering that the referral for that came from me, did you consider calling me?
I used the information that the mayor gave me, the phone number.
The owner called me to follow up and see if anyone was going to contact him. So I'm not sure if the information didn't make it correctly, if the number was incorrect, or, and I asked him about that, the no dedicated parking, and he said that's certainly something that could be discussed, as well as the rate, if he had been contacted. So
you have a relationship with the owner, is that what you said?
Well, as they contacted me after our first meeting.
Okay.
To offer to have a meeting about the space, because they are a city resident and they were interested in helping keep the IT department in the city.
Okay. Then the owner of the property, I believe, is someone named Patel. Is that correct? Do I have the correct listing?
Nope.
Nope.
It's Command Technologies owns that building.
Command Technologies owns it. So it's Boris.
Boris Igor is the father, Robert is the son.
Okay.
Yep. So they contacted in interest of seeing if they could suit GU's needs.
The phone number that was provided, the 304 number, I did not get a pickup or a voice message on that number. The number that was provided in your email.
So I guess a lot of these properties say no in the yes/no column, but
no means that there was no showing.
Oh, okay. That's not like no, it's not suitable.
We didn't schedule a showing. There are properties that we did get a showing on, but determined weren't suitable. For instance, 18 Thames Street.
So I thought the yes/no was yes, possibly suitable, no, not suitable, but you're saying the yes/no is whether there was a showing on it.
That's correct.
Okay, that is helpful information.
So that list was provided to show the magnitude of the scope of how many properties we looked at. It was not made to give you guys the detail to determine what property is appropriate for the utility. So that was a list to show how hard we've worked, and we've had engineers, we've had people looking at different buildings when we scoped them out. It wasn't made to sit there and make decisions on whether appropriate property is appropriate or not at this point.
So
Plus, that was a lease, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
So at this point, I've pushed us down the road of a buy because that will affect the rate less. And I happen to disagree. I believe what's good for the ratepayers is actually also good for the city. I absolutely believe that to be true, and I believe you would want me to make the fiscal correct decision for the utility every time. Because in a few weeks, we're going to have a cost of service study presented here for the water department where you're not going to like the rate increase. So we need to be fiscally conscious. Every single $1,000 we spend is important. And I do expect you to ask good, hard questions when we ask to spend money. I thank you for that.
So I do agree, what is good for ratepayers is good for, because we want the utility to operate well. I guess my overall issue is I feel like there are avenues that weren't explored, or maybe that we need another holistic review of space in this building and in our facilities. And I don't know that buying a property is the answer, especially with the city's track record. And, we talked about buying the property, we can sell it in 10 years. This council's not going to be here in 10 years. So when we make decisions, it's hard to say, in 10 years, this is what we'll do with it, because we're not going to be here. So I think for us, it's not as easy to say, yes, this is a good idea, and in 10 years, we can just do this, and it'll be all good. That would be great, except none of us will probably still be on this council in 10 years, or maybe we will, who knows. But chances are that the council is going to look different. So making a decision based on the possibility of a future decision made by people we don't know, to me, I don't make decisions that way. I make decisions thinking, what are the contingencies to put in place to make sure that the outcome is what we expect the outcome to be? And while a lease may be less cost effective, and I'm not saying a lease is better to go with over a purchase, but I don't feel like on this that we have, as a city, holistically looked at enough options that this is the best one. And I think I'm going to leave it at that for now.
Okay. Anyone else want to speak at this point? Councilor Carter, you have the floor.
Just a couple. Brought up some very good points. Surprising, but very good points. Yeah, I mean that in a good way.
All right.
No, it's a good way.
No,
I'm giving her a compliment.
Wow, okay.
I mean.
All right, go ahead. You still have the floor.
Okay. So my stance is similar to what I said last week and what I've said the last 6 years on this. You know, I think that, and to what Deputy Mayor Depot was stating is that we're here now, but if this was such a frantic thing, I feel like there should have been a build up to this. You know, I think we need to ask ourselves a question of, if this building was not for purchase, right, what would we be doing? You know, where would we be at right now? You know, what would we have to do? I think as far as vetting the empty spaces that we have in the city, you know, me being on for 6 years, I think that, you know, 6 years is certainly enough time to vet the empty building owners, to find numbers that we need to find, to try to reach out to some of these owners that may or may not have space, to see if we can get some concessions from these people that are holding on to these buildings, you know? And I just want to hint back on what I said last week as well. You know, I for one, in good faith, can't support buying a building when we have tons of empty space in the city, and I want to go back to being a homeowner here in the city. You know, my wife, she wants to move out of the city. She says there's no space. She wants to get out. You know, got 5 kids, and she wants to get out. But here I am, wanting to stay in the city. Trying to get special privileges, special permits to build where I'm at, because I want to stay in the city. And I think we have to entertain that before we go elsewhere. And that's just my opinion. I don't think we've done enough to try to obtain spaces. And I think I'm not sure money. You know, I understand invested in money, but I don't think we, as a council, or me as a council member, can put a monetary standpoint of how much we're going to invest in a building. I look at it as invested into the city, you know? So if you look at it as that, right, it really shouldn't matter how much money we have to put in, because it's Groton City. It's what we are, you know? So I do appreciate the work that you guys have put in on this, right? And, you know, I respect you, you know? But to me, this is the same thing 2 years ago and then 2 years prior that we're talking about. And to still be talking about this, you know, and to not have numbers or information of these empty buildings, that just means that there's more work that needs to actually be done. And I think that work needs to be done for myself to actually to move on purchasing a building outside of the city. But I appreciate your work in this.
Councilor Norris.
All right, if you can please help me wrap my brain around this. So, TVC, Breeze Line moving out. Do you know how much square footage that essentially opened up?
It was in the report. It said by moving them totally out of this floor, I assume that meant they had to stay in the head end, was 1,900 square feet.
But are they moving out? Are they gone? Are they moving out permanently?
So what they closed and they gave up over the past 2 years was they closed down their customer service with COVID.
Okay.
And they moved back from their customer service area, which also included the room behind the front room, the customer service. If you go back one more room, that's the data center for IT.
Right.
And behind that was where we have business development, and it's actually a safe. It used to be a safe. So they moved out of there also. So they've evacuated, or they've moved out of the safe, the hallway area, the 3 offices there, and also the entire back corner where HR currently is. So there was 3 offices there, plus a conference room.
Okay, so right now, forget planning for a moment.
Yep.
I know you like to plan, but how much square footage is unoccupied at the moment?
Just the TVC area?
Well, I'm talking about in this Groton Utilities side of the building.
And 290.
So about 600 square feet.
Okay, thank you. All right, keep going, and I'll be quick, I promise. Do you know what the percentage of increase or the number of new employees you have in IT over the past 7 or 8 years?
One more?
No, actually,
2
more.
2. All right. Can people listening, can you please tell me what customer care is? What's in customer care?
Well, customer care takes care of the front desk.
Yep.
So you have your customer service agents that actually answer the phone.
Yep.
You actually have billing that actually creates the bills every bill cycle. There's 4 bill cycles here. So they're on the cash register. So you've got customer service answers the phone, takes the checks, makes the credits. Billing actually develops the bills, creates the bills, and runs those up through, and that's basically customer service.
Sure. So how many staff people do you think you have between billing, customer service?
Tina has,
14, including Tina.
14.
right, they're 14.
Thank you. And, all right, math. So purchase of this is $475, right?
Including closing costs, estimated closing costs.
Yeah, and then you're looking, I think I heard a number of 200,000 in renovations, correct?
To a maximum of 200, yes.
Okay, all right, so the renovations or work to be done to the existing operations building, we were thinking
Generator building was 1.7 million?
Yeah, plus civil, and then another, if the electric op right now with the first 2 conceptual design was going to be 1.9 million plus civil work too.
Sure. Is that today's money or? Okay, so at a 1.3 to a 2.1 pre-COVID increase rate, we're tacking on another, so it's going to be 2.1. Right? All right. All right. Have we ever considered in the past year or even during COVID doing like a space utilization survey of what space we currently have over in the utility side?
Was the space study what you're...
No, that's a space study. I'm actually saying space utility. Someone comes in and says, this is the space you have. You have 35 employees, it's X square feet, this is how we can configure it because you may not be able to go somewhere else.
Is
So
that
that's-
what Wright Pierce is looking at?
Just looking at the actual conceptual design, what we need for basically all the people, personnel we had in there, so.
So yes.
Not a formal study
Okay,
put
okay.
together.
All right.
There is they're working, Wright Pierce has a couple of architects that Bruce is working with.
Got it.
So it's not a formal,
And we gave them the staff level, what's over there and all that stuff, so.
Okay. All right. 2 more questions. So this will not, the purchase of this property will not affect rates in any way.
It's currently baked in.
What does that mean?
It's part of the capital spending plan. So the capital spend plan is assuming that we spend X amount of non-bonded capital dollars this year. So it's already in the program. As long as it's capital, we do not have the expense budgeted in.
So the money's already in the checkbook to buy the property. I guess that's the
So
easiest
no,
way.
it won't affect.
It won't affect rates because it's already in the cost of service study is where, it's part of the program. And we're just looking for the least amount of cost as we move ahead with the program.
Got it. All right.
Because we have this much work to do.
Yeah.
And we only have this much money.
Sure. So last question. Why would it take 10 years to get all the work done at the operations building?
It all depends when we want to go for bonding. Currently, the electric company isn't looking to go to bonding till in about 5 years, a large amount of debt will be paid off for the electric company, and we are looking to go to bond at about 5 years and continue the capital program at the pre-programmed rate that is fixed into the cost service study. So when we develop a cost of service study, we look at all the assets the utility owns, and we look at how depreciated, how aged it is. And the goal is to keep your assets 50% depreciated and to be investing the same amount that you're depreciating every year to keep your assets young and viable. That includes any infrastructure that we live in as facilities. That programmed rate is what is currently in the cost of service study, where we have one more year on the non-bonded capital we're using cash. We may get another 2 years of cash before we're going to start wanting to go out for bonding again. In about the year point 2028, a very large set of bonds is going to finish, of which we don't own any capital. So the numbers on the electric company are a bit skewed. So when that debt is paid off, we will be able to go out and very easily be able to afford bonding to continue with keeping the capital 50% depreciated.
So do you know, so let's go in with that.
It's purely financing.
I'm not trying to
We're
play
just
gotcha,
trying
so
to not spend a lot of money all at once.
So is your debt service going to be flat? Or are you saying, wait a minute, our debt service is going down, so that gives us the ability, to bond $2 million?
Well, let's say that all that work and changes over at the operations building costs $6 million.
Right.
Order of magnitude. It would be going for another bond package. So we just 2 years ago came and did a 5-year bond package with the council, and we're completing the 5-year program. At the end of the 5-year bond package, the utility will be back and go to whatever council, and councils, no matter who you are, tend to make good decisions and ask good questions. So I'm not worried about who I'm talking to. I'm worried about having people to talk to and keeping the program going enough so that you can understand that the business premise and where we're coming from makes sense and isn't last minute or rushed.
Sure.
We have been thinking about space nonstop forever, and finally we happened into a property that fit the spending profile and the burn rate that we currently need to do.
I promise, last question. So, I don't know, why is it possible, or why wouldn't we not purchase this new piece of property and spend money to do whatever we want to do with it? Leave that in the bank. It's going to cost what are you thinking? $200? $200,000 to do all the engineering, permitting, and all that kind of stuff
It's
for?
gonna be a lot more than that. So
Okay.
It's probably gonna be $500,000 to $600,000.
Got it.
So-
Oh, let's go with that
Yeah.
then. So not spend this $700,000. 3 years from now, bond the 1.5, because then you're saving money.
Are we saving money?
Well, yeah.
I want to give a point of clarification on 2028. 2028 is when we retire the TVC debt. That's the thing that we're talking about, but we're not talking about. So when you retire that debt, that's going to give us around $2 million a year.
2.5.
All right.
$2.5 million a year.
Yes, that's
So
what I was
let's
asking.
talk.
On the run rate.
Let's talk, brass tacks. Let's not beat around and talk in circles. Let's talk about what's really going to happen. So in 28, 29, end of 28, beginning of 29, if I remember correctly, the TVC bond is retired. The debt is retired. So that gives us one, additional cash, but also gives us debt, depth, such that if we decide we're going to bond, then we still have some cash set aside.
Now I get it.
Yeah, that's a giant payment. And that actually frees up $2.5 million of cash every year, which is not a little bit of money.
Okay, thank you.
Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Questions? Okay. Councilor Carter, and then I'm going to go to the deputy mayor, and then I'll come back to you.
Mine's more,
Because you haven't spoken yet.
more of a quick statement. I want to apologize to Deputy Mayor Depot. What I meant was, okay, is that just simply that I was not sure of what her opinion was going to be. That's when I said surprising. Not that she had good points. She has great points. A very smart young lady. So I just wanted to make that on the record. That's what I meant. I apologize if...
Thanks for reminding everyone I'm younger than you.
Before I go to you, I want to go the first time. Okay, Councilor Piazza, you have not spoken.
Thank you, Mayor. I looked at all the information we received in our packet. So, and thank you for the tour. I think from the facts that was given to me and all the lots of questions I asked. So when you talk about this debt, that was the biggest thing to me that kind of made things kind of click for me. So basically have these oranges that we borrowed, and now we're finally going to get those paid. So now here we are, kind of like freezes up to do other things. One of the things I looked at is this. I'm glad to see that it doesn't affect the ratepayer. So I remember we talked about a lot of properties and so forth, and you guys have been doing this because, obviously I'm looking at the date of this space needs assessment, 2018. I wasn't here, so obviously it had to be in the talking in the works. I'm imagining, not behind closed doors. I wouldn't assume. And correct me if I'm wrong, if anybody says. So on here, and I think we talked about it when I was here, so the question was, what plans by Councilor Norris, what plans do you have should the proposal to complete the purchase not be approved, which is supposedly the tentative date is Valentine's Day, correct? Wasn't it that, what was something by Valentine's Day, 2/14?
The PSA had a proposed closing date of February 14th, but we have the opportunity for extension.
Right, okay, thank you. So it says, I know we talked about 15 Thames Street, because we also talked about 18 across. And it said that would be the suitable lease, and when I looked, that was when I actually read this paper first and looked at it. So when you look at 15 Thames, it said no, because you were saying that was a not looked at, right? If it says no?
15 Thames Street, second floor, which is the first item on the list.
Oh, 15 Thames. Okay.
1,785 square feet, yes, but it was a vanilla box and too small. If you look further down on the list, you'll see 15 Thames Street again.
Yeah.
Unit number 2.
Right.
That is ADA compliant. It is ample space. It is ample parking. And renovation costs appear to be low based on the conditions that you see on the listing. We have not looked at that property yet.
Okay.
That's also at a lower price per square foot.
Right, right. Because when I look at, say, for instance, 100 Fort Hill Road, when you times that out by the square footage, it's about 41,000. So, so I was just like doing costs and whatever, and just all the information received. So, but I mean, that was the answer here. So 15 Thames Street, not per se, you would go to second floor, or you would go to the unit number 2?
Well, both of those are on the second floor.
Okay.
One is street side, the other is riverside. The street side property is the 1,700 square foot, and it's a vanilla, what they call a vanilla box.
Okay.
Which it isn't actually currently in that condition yet.
Okay.
So it's not sheetrocked, it's concrete floor, wide open space.
Okay, so the answer in that one is the one with the vanilla box.
The vanilla box is too small, and it would require more renovation costs because there's nothing in there.
So if this purchase didn't go through, it would be that one you would look at leasing?
The one in the back. Unit number 2.
Unit number 2? Okay, not the second floor one.
They're both on the second floor, sorry.
Okay, so
Little
clarify,
confusing.
okay, so, but on this list, is unit number 2, or is it second floor one? Is it the third one down, or is it the
Third
first
one on
down?
the list,
Okay.
it's 15 Thames Street,
Yep.
unit number 2 is how it's referred to in the listing.
Okay.
And that's the 4,800 square feet at
So-
$12.
Okay, so my next question is 390, how does 391 beat out this one? I can't remember if we discussed that or not.
Well, simply lease versus purchase. When you look at the condition of both, we haven't walked into unit number 2 yet, but based on the photos in the MLS listing, it looks like the renovation would be relatively low, similar to 391.
Okay.
It has ample space, it has ample parking, there's no restrictions on the amount of parking. It's a pretty large lot, and most of that building is not occupied. So that gives us that opportunity to have ample space.
Okay, so all these that are listed here, the notes are basically what you see in the listing per se, because you haven't done a
What we saw on the
walkthrough.
listing, or if we did go to a showing, there's additional notes.
Okay, so, so the big difference is leasing versus
Lease
buying.
versus purchase.
And I know we talked about that extensively, and I think, to me, and I'm not sure if I'm right, but when we talked about the leasing, all these properties, we talked about all the properties, I think it was kind of what settled it was this debt, and that in the long run, leasing was going to cost more than if we were to purchase. That's what we ended up with, correct, at the end
That's
of the
correct.
conversation? Okay.
So we would, if we only had the option of a lease, we would want to, again, look for a suitable property at the least possible price that met our requirements.
Right, right.
So that would be.
And that was always the
obviously,
heart of
that
the
would be
conversation, I
guideline.
know. Yeah, okay, thank you.
There are properties that are leasing at well over $20 a square foot, and that's high.
Okay. Have you spoken?
No.
Okay, I'm going to Councilor Sheffield, and then I will get to you. Councilor Sheffield, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you guys again for coming. Yeah, that difference between lease and purchase, in leasing, you're not going to recoup your money back when the lease is done compared to purchase, to where you can sell, and that was, one of the primary reasons why to make that purchase is when the time is necessary that we can find something else, we have the extra cash, then, we could sell that building back and, get some value out of it. So I think that's the best part. And of course, for the price, compared to what we have in the city, I think it's a no-brainer. There isn't real estate, from what I see in the city, for the price, as well as, like I said, the renovations seem to be extensive on the rest of these properties. So from an economic standpoint, I think this is the best move. I think that's all I have.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Depot.
I have a couple more questions and comments. So, on one of my issues too is, as I stated, and I think Councilor Carter stated too, is I do think there are more places to look. For example, all of the no's on this list means that we didn't physically look at these properties. I think, to me, that's an issue. And again, I understand if this were your personal property and you go, here's my options, this one looks the best for me and I feel the best about this one, I'm gonna go with that because it makes the most sense. If you're only making a decision for yourself or for, solely owned business or something like that, it makes sense to do that. I think here, if I vote yes on this, I am going to have residents say, where else did you look? And I'm going to have to say, well, we listed a bunch of places, but we didn't actually look at them. And they're not going to be happy with that answer. And that's one of the main problems that I have with this is when I answer to people, I'm going to have to tell them, well, we made a list, but we didn't actually compare it physically to the other place we were looking at because the list was really long, or we had like a couple weeks and we didn't hear back. Residents don't like answers like that. And again, I know that that's not your primary interaction, is not probably with residents, but mine is. And I don't think, to me, that's not good enough. I don't think.
So can I say something?
Yes.
We pay people to do their job. I manage them doing their job. I do not micromanage my people to do a good job. So everybody in the organization gets involved to the depth and to the need that they do to make sure that the people working for them are doing an awesome job. I trust my team, and I'm very comfortable with their recommendation, and I am not involved in telling them what property to buy. They discussed it with me, they showed me the options, and even at my level, I am not deciding what property to buy. I am acknowledging that they have done a good job doing the right decision-making process. So if council wants to choose the property, we will never choose the property, correct? Probably. Just an opinion, and I am sorry I even spoke up.
I'm not saying that we should choose the property, but when provided, essentially you could just remove everything on this list that says no, because it wasn't actually looked at, which would be fine, to then have the list that just says properties that were actually looked at. That would also be fine. But the last kind of question that I would like to ask is, so this comparison of the 10 years. So if we buy the property, we're going to spend, we'll see, we minused out the selling price, but without the selling price, $700,000, right? For purchase, renovation, all of that, if we were to purchase this property. Is that right?
I'm looking at the same spreadsheet you are.
How long is that renovation going to take? 6 months? Oh.
6 weeks? It's going to take 6 weeks.
Okay, so all of this money, about $700K, we're going to spend in a matter of a couple months, theoretically.
By the way, that does include an emergency generator, which most rentals don't have. So we're going to spend that on any other rental property, even if we lease, because the $200,000 includes installing generation and modifying the electrical system, so IT is up.
But
including
That's-
any cables or
Right, it's the majority of the costs are for emergency generation.
We're going to have to do that, badges, cameras, and all that.
Yep.
That's going to happen either place that we've
The money we're spending, the 200, is a wash whether we rent, lease, or own.
can I get to my question? So we have cash coming in on an annual basis, correct, above what our expenses are for the utility. And that's where this cash is coming from.
The cash is coming from the checkbook. It's
Yes.
currently in the checkbook.
What is our expected influx of cash on an annual basis for the next 3 years?
Some years it's negative. I can't answer that.
Okay. So, and you said the cost to build what we want to build at ops is going to be like, you said 2 million.
For the, we call it generator building and stuff like that, it's approximately 1.7 million plus civil work, which is, again, that's probably another 300 to 500,000 easily, because we have to develop a stormwater plan for this.
So, comparing this 10 years of purchase to 10 years of lease is not actually apples to apples then, because if we were to lease, we wouldn't have to actually lease for 10 years because we would have cash to apply to the new building on ops. And then prior to that 10 years, we would have the availability to bond. So the overall cost comparison is not really 700,000 to the 1 million that you have on here, because we wouldn't end up leasing for 10 years. We would end up leasing for a few years.
So the spreadsheet was created by E, our controller. Her financial finesse is much beyond what I said. I said, E, do you want us to buy or do you want us to lease? She said, please buy. So I said, do you have a spreadsheet that can show kind of the comparison of why that's a good thing? And she created this spreadsheet for me. So that's what I gave you.
And it was also in response to your question.
Yes, I was just going to say thank you. I did ask for a 10-year projected comparison. And someone else asked something that made me think of this, that the money that we could apply towards a new building, towards a renovation, we could do that instead of buying a new building if we spend a small portion of it on a lease instead. So while leasing...
So we actually are spending in our capital plan close to $5 million a year cash. So if you're worried about 100 to 200, 300, $500,000 one way or the other, that's not what this is about. We are planning in our capital plan spending about $5 million in capital cash every year for the next couple of years. So this has nothing to do with being able to afford.
So if we didn't buy this building, what would we do with this cash?
We may do nothing, or we may replace a new set of lines on a street. We may, there's a pile of projects that Bruce has in his office that we're just bartering which one is next to do. And currently we were working on space.
So I have other things that I didn't necessarily bring up, and I don't want to belabor the point, but I feel like we searched for a thing that we like, and to me, I feel like I have to answer for more than that.
You guys need to vote what you're comfortable, and you don't have to justify that to me. So,
well, I kind of disagree. I think that if I'm going to vote on something, and I think that the employees have a right to have an opinion on it. You are the professionals, and I don't think it would be fair of me to vote and not give you my rationale. I think that's kind of unfair. I would like to have seen more due diligence done on these properties, especially the ones in the city, knowing that they weren't actually physically looked at. For example, the generator issue. How do you know that they don't have generators? I mean, they might not. The chances are that they might not, but you don't know that because you didn't ask. So I have a problem with that lack of being thorough on rejecting these options. And that's, yeah. I think if this list had all yeses that we've inspected and personally gone and visited all these and none of them suit our needs, my opinion might be different. But the fact that we know that there's this many properties and we're just going based on a couple pieces of info that we have on each of them and not going physically and saying, all right, let's take a look around and see if it would work, I just don't. I don't think it's enough.
Okay, thank you. Councilor McCabe, you have the floor.
Thank you. I look at this list a little bit differently than Deputy Mayor. If I'm looking at the MLS listings, which you said you looked at all the MLS listings available in the city and the town, you went through the list. If I was looking at my list, I'd go through the MLS listings. Okay, this has ADA compliant. This has the right square footage. I would look through all of those listings, read all the information, and weed out and pick the ones that had meet the criteria, or at least close to it, and go to those. I wouldn't necessarily go to 50 locations, especially ones that don't have the criteria or close to the criteria that I need to meet. So I'm comfortable with there being no's on this list, because I don't think it doesn't make sense to me to actually physically go to the place if it wastes their time, if it doesn't make sense in the MLS listing. Looking at empty buildings that aren't for lease or for sale in the city and knocking on somebody's door, that doesn't make sense to me either, because, I mean, if I was an owner, I'd be a little offended if somebody, no, it's not for sale. If it was, it would be listed. So I'm comfortable with this list. That's it.
Councilor Piazza.
Thank you, Mayor. I understand what Deputy Mayor is saying, and being fiscally responsible. I totally get that point. I also understand Councilor McCabe's point. I feel when I came for the tour here and all the information that we've received, the facts that we've received, and when I did the tour and asked some questions, I actually brought up properties to Sue and Ron and Bruce. Bruce, correct? Yes, thank you. And I mentioned properties. I said, well, what about this building? What about this empty building? Well, how about here? Well, how about here? Well, and then we went over about the schools again, because I had asked about the schools. So, and they were, the answers weren't, I don't know. The answers were they had information about it, or they already knew something was going on about it. So I'm not trying to go against anybody. What I'm just saying is I felt like speaking with them and taking the tour answered a lot of questions for me, and I really appreciated the questions that people had presented and that were answered. But I do feel the years that have been spent, and I do think, I think they're doing their due diligence and being fiscally responsible. But I mean, I brought up a lot of more, like, just to make sure. I'd say, well, what about that building? Well, how about that? Well, are you going to spend that? Well, why do you have to do renovations? And I'm not saying I was the top dog here. That's not what I'm saying. But I think my only thing that brought questions to me is I wasn't here. I think I had asked a question, and somebody said that it was voted against or something. I can't remember. Do you remember what that was I asked? And it was voted against or something, because I wasn't here as a counselor at the time. I don't remember what it was. But in reference kind of like to this. So, I mean, I think it's obviously been a long process. I mean, I think just the criteria being looked at, and but my thing too, bouncing off of Counselor Carter, is that I did ask, especially things in the city. I think that's what it was about. Why was it decided to keep in the city, not in the town? Or something to that effect, I remember, because I wasn't here when that was discussed before I came. So, but I mean, I did ask about a lot of properties in the city because there are a lot of empty things. I felt at the time, then when I was speaking with them, that they had a good undertaking of the history of the buildings. You know, because I think I threw a lot of different places. We chatted for quite a long time. And not saying I'm perfect or that I had all the facts, but I just kind of wanted to share that, you know. I don't know, maybe there is other place to look. I mean, these are the things that are pulled up, but, you know, things that I didn't see or the ones they had mentioned, I was like, well, what about this? What about that? Was that on the list? Was that on here? What about here? What about here? We talked about Garbo's, and we talked about a lot of places. How about this house? I heard about this place on Thames Street. Remember when I brought that up? This thing on Thames Street. I think they just want to sell it. They don't want to sell it, but it's available. But did you know that was empty? You know, so forth. And I just heard by word of mouth that blah, 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 blah. And Sue, like, wrote it down. She was very interested and was going to look into it and so forth. So I do want to say there is due diligence here. I'm not speaking against anybody here, but I see both points. I'm kind of getting a little...
Okay, any other? Councilor Norris, you have the floor.
I'm not wed to you need to be in the city. You got a building in the town, so I'm really not wed to that. Yes, purchase versus lease is always a better option. A lease on a 2-3 year is, in my mind, better than purchasing and sitting on it for 10 years, because there's stuff that goes along with that, and you all know after 4 years you're breaking into repairs and maintenance anyway, and that shoots up. So there's that. I get caught, and I really need to stop saying I'm the newbie. I get caught being presented with something that doesn't give me a strategic map from 2017, 2016, 2000, whatever it was, that said, this is what we need to plan to, here's the plan, we're going to do or move over to operations within 4 years, 5 years, 7 years. This is what it's going to cost. This is what the outlook is. This is what our 5-year reserve forecast is. So is there a plan to change bonding, not change bonding? We spend $5 million a year on stuff, but we're going to renegotiate, and in 28, 29, this building will be done. Let's go. And that's what I wrestle with. So I don't know if I can really vote on something that I feel that I feel haphazard, and it's not your fault. So I just wanted to lay that out.
Whatever we do, can we just vote?
Well, hold on. Well, all right, so there's a couple things we could do. We could vote, or if the council doesn't have enough information, needs additional information, you can move it to a future meeting, to another mayor and council meeting, and give these guys, that would be the vote, give these guys time to do additional research, to vet these properties, and to go to 404 and go to the other properties and look at them, and then come back to you at the CAL, Committee of the Whole, give you the brief, and then you vote at the next mayor and council meeting. That is an option. If you look at Robert's rules, that is allowed. That is an option. Or if council doesn't want to do that, you can. I am prepared to put it to a vote tonight. Councilor Norris.
I was going to ask, can we allow Rob to?
Sure. Commissioner Giuliani?
Thank you.
I will give you the floor.
Thank you.
For those of you that, will you do a real quick introduction? I think everybody knows. But
Sure. Rob Zuliani. I'm on the Groton Utility Commission with all the other utility commissioners. I thought it would be best to probably give you the utilities perspective in regards to why we made this decision and now it's being presented to you. Ron and the management team had made the same present information as you have available to you at verbatim. I mean, we discussed it in detail. Key points I want to emphasize that we consider. You all recognize and understand that this building is completely not adequate for our needs. No matter how you slice it or dice it or move people around, no matter how much open space you got, it will never be satisfactory to today's needs or anywhere going forward. It's just not available. What are your options? Well, one thing we didn't discuss is you could add to this building, put $1 million, maybe $2 million. Where would you do it? How would you do it? 10, 15 years from now, you still haven't solved the problem on the short-term relationship. That's up. 2 other capital investment programs. We can stick it out by the filtration plant. We got two areas we can do there. We can do $1.5 million, $1 million, $1 million building addition. Very expensive. Again, down the road, not going to happen right away. It's going to be years from now. We don't satisfy the need for today. What you're being presented with is a short-term solution right now. The cheapest solution right now. It's the best deal. I think you understand. You put rent out there, it's going money. You're going to never get that back. You put a mortgage down, now you're getting principal into the investment. At the end of the time period, you own this thing or want to keep it or use it, you can capitalize on getting that money back by reselling it. There's no brainer there. It may be a break even. You might lose a little money. You might probably make some money. Short term, this is a solution now. What you got to understand, and this is where I'm coming from, this table, this information you have now is on the table here now. 30 days, 60 days from now, it's obsolete information. You're gonna force these people to go back into doing this whole thing over again. Half of these properties are not going to be available. Half of them aren't anyway. Whether they were specifically checked or not, you're going to throw them back into creating all sorts of wasted time to redo this whole thing over again. And you probably won't. They'll probably tell you to buy another piece of property, maybe, but you haven't solved this is the best option you got available to you. You go along. You start sending it back to them. You're going to waste a lot of hours for them to go play this game again. And I consider their management hours very critical and important. I really don't want them chasing real estate. I don't want them wasting their time. That's my opinion.
Deputy Mayor Depot.
Thank you, Commissioner. So you kind of leaned in towards something that I left off my list of comments, but it is a bigger issue. And part of my problem, as Councilor Norris said, is that it doesn't seem like there's a strategic plan. It's like a piecemeal fix for IT. And the IT director in our last meeting said that this is not urgent. So my issue is that it's being made to seem like it's urgent, when then we're being told it's not. And my other issue is that we've had space problems here for a very long time. So my other, which I was going to maybe wait for a future meeting to make a referral, but my other issue is, are we going to keep kicking the can down the road about all of these problems in the municipal building, or are we going to put a pause on this and take a step back and look at the bigger picture of the municipal building? And this peg jumping is not fixing it. It's not been working. IT's been short of space for 20 years, and we're shifting people around. While we're shifting people, we've got empty offices. I felt like coming into the building to take a tour today, I got opinions from people in every different department of what they thought. And my initial takeaway was someone from the outside that doesn't work in this building needs to come look at this building and take a step back and look at the whole thing and look at how it's being utilized, not necessarily just what the space is. And I am not keen on being on a council that keeps kicking the can down the road, and I think that's what councils have done in the past. And I do think that a strategic plan makes more sense instead of all of a sudden we got to fix the IT space problem. The IT space problem's been there 20 years, and we had an opportunity when we're doing renovations. There's been shifts and moves and all kinds of stuff in the utility. And it may be that a purchase is the right thing, but I don't think that we have looked at the big picture enough. And unfortunately for the utility, they are in the building with the municipality, and they're part of us. So I don't think that that decision can be made solely for the utility. I think that would be an easier decision. If the utility was completely separate, and that's all we were making a decision for, that'd be an easy decision. But that's not what we do on the council. We don't get to do that. So to me, my initial takeaway was we have been kicking the can down the road, all the councils before me, and I don't want to keep doing that. I think the bigger picture for our taxpayers, that's a bad decision to just keep going, all right, this department of 11 people, we're gonna fix their problem. And then in 2 years, we're gonna have another department of 6 people, they're gonna have a problem. We got a police department that is growing out of its space, that is very important to our community also. Their problem's gonna be fixed in 6 years. Like, instead of stepping back and looking at what we can do and make a strategic plan for how we're gonna remedy this for good.
Councilor Sheffield.
Well, running a business doesn't have time to step back and take a look at things. Business has to move forward regardless. And when the opportunity presents itself, you should take advantage of it right away. Now, with this building, it's going to be about $5 million. Who's willing to pay that $5 million? And then you got to set the plan of, what do you want to do with that $5 million? Okay, it's not going to happen overnight. Okay, it's not going to be even 1-2 years. So if you want a long-term solution, then yeah, you want to start the planning now, but once finally things are implemented, it's going to be years down the road. It's not going to be done right away. So taking a step back for a little bit isn't going to help, because you have a business to run and things have to be done. You can't just wait and sit back and wait till things align itself the way we want it to. You got to make it happen now, make your purchase, and then start your plan. I believe I went over it with 2 of my counselors. You have to think long term, but the immediate need is right now. And to make the purchase now, because you don't want to lease because you're just throwing it away. So you make that purchase, then you start thinking your long-term strategic planning. And that's where, again, this whole building has to be assessed. Whether, and patching it up certainly isn't going to be the answer. But it has to be a long-term, and it's going to have to be a significant amount of investment to do. So here, I think, again, we should take this investment as we have it, while we have it, because we're not sure if we're going to get it back again, and move forward, and like I said, keep the IT department going forward. I think that's the only way we should do it. To say no now, we may not get a second bite at the apple, and then we're still, status quo. And then still, there's no plan. So that's all I have to say for now.
So in 2017, when I came in as the mayor, Carlton Smith talked to me and showed me the POCD of 2008. And we had a space issue then, so we got a team together, and we talked about having a space study done. That's the space study that you have in front of you. We did start executing based on that. We did get some people moved. We didn't get everybody moved because we were going to need additional space. And whether you build up or whether you build out or whether you try to decide if we can use space down in the basement, it ended up costing a lot of money. And the numbers that were given to me were between $2 and $4 million in order to do anything. $4 million to build up for ADA accessibility and things like that. $2 million to knock out the back wall over here and build out. So I don't remember if I brought it to the council or not. If I didn't bring it to the council, it was because at that time, the Freeman had already said, the General Freeman had already said that they didn't want to spend any more money on anything. They didn't want to spend money on the Bailey House, they didn't want to spend money anywhere else. So I did not bring it to the Freeman for concerns that it would probably get knocked down. In retrospect, I probably should have brought it to the councilman, to the Freeman, and said, here's how much it's going to cost. One thing that this has done, the silver lining, if there is one, is that it has refocused our issue on space. And I'm going to get the real estate committee together after the decision is made on this, regardless of the decision, in order to come up with a master plan and come up with options and what the costs are going to be, and then bring them to you guys, bring them to the council, and then we decide if we're going to bring it to the Freeman. Because we are going to, in order to do a major fix, it is going to cost money, and we are probably going to have to bond. So, well, and you know, there's things out there about, you know, if you're doing this, if you don't do this, you don't support economic development. I personally think that's a red herring. And let me tell you why. Because if we buy a house, if we buy property in the city of Groton, people are going to say, oh my gosh, you just took it off of tax rolls. Well, in reality, when you look at a single piece of property, the input to the tax rolls, if it's a regular place. Now, building 600 is different, but if you were to buy a regular property, say 18 Thames, which is the old police barracks, the input, the tax value from the city's aspect of it is really not that big. But is it really doing anything to spur economic growth on Thames Street? And the answer is probably not. The other thing is, if you put if anybody leases space, a government agency leases space in a building that's already paying full taxes, then are you really doing any economic development, economic growth there? And the answer is really no, because they're already paying taxes. All you're doing is filling some space, and you're giving them additional revenue. The other thing about this is that if you look at the numbers of employees that are GU employees that already work in the town, there's more employees that are working in the town than are working here. And if you know, there are some people on Facebook that are saying, oh my God, look at this space, it's in the town. We just built a $54 million water plant in the town. So again, I think some of the outrage is meant to stir issues, meant to be emotional about it. Now, you guys have a decision to make, and once again, I'll ask you, do you have enough information to vote tonight, or do you want to move it to a future meeting and send these guys off with additional direction, or does the council want to do a vote? And I'm putting it to you as a council. If you're done with discussion, I think at this point we're done with discussion. So I will, you know, a consensus of where you want to go. We have a motion on the floor.
You want us to go around and
Well, I was going to start with Councilor Norris. What are you thinking on this? I'm not asking for your vote. I'm asking, do you want to vote, or do you want to move it to a future meeting to give
answer questions?
thank you.
Let's vote.
Okay?
Vote.
Okay?
Vote.
Okay?
Vote.
Okay? I already got 4.
Yeah, we don't want to count.
No, you do count, but I would like a decision. Okay? All right, so vote it is. The motion on the floor, if you vote yay, that is to purchase 391 Long Hill Road. Okay? Councilor McCabe.
Oh, no.
If you vote, yeah, oh, I'm sorry. So are you ready? Are you ready to vote?
Yes.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, show your hands. Oh,
What is this for?
this is,
Do a roll call?
Yes.
yeah, let's do a roll call vote then.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right, Deputy Mayor Depot,
Nay.
Councilor Norris,
Nay.
Councilor McCabe,
Yes.
Councilor Sheffield,
Yes.
Councilor Piazza,
Yes.
Councilor Carter.
Nay.
Thus, invoking the charter, you are the tiebreaker, Mayor.
I am.
That's how it should be.
That's how it should be, though.
No,
So, Mayor Hedrick, how do you vote?
I understand.
You wasn't expecting that.
Well, actually, I was. I've agonized over this, and I have 2 minds on this. I have one that I think might be a good decision, but then the other one is a political decision, and I don't tend to go by the political decision. Right? I agree. But I have been, if you will, threatened based on what my vote would be. Oh, absolutely. It is wrong.
It is.
But that is where we are. So, with that, I will move yay to move this forward to 391, to move IT out of here. We are still going to address the space study issue here.
All right, so the motion passes.
So the motion passes, because you need 4 affirmative votes according to the charter. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions, motion carries.
All right.
Thank you, council, for your time. Thank you, guys.
So much was around the last 2 hours. I got court tomorrow and trial. I got a trial starting tomorrow.
I gotta get that long block. I'm like,